Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the March meeting of our Public Safety Committee meeting. First of all, let me give a welcome to all our visitors. We've got several here tonight. We're glad to have you with us as we deal with the issues of the county here, dealing with our public safety. Several things on the agenda tonight. We'll try to move as fast as we can with the things that we need to deal with, that we can do that with, and take our time with the things we need to be discussing. So the first thing on our agenda is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I've read the minutes. Make a motion that they be approved as submitted. Second.
Have a motion, have a second. Commissioner Shanto. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. We have on, if you look on the agenda there this evening, we have a consent agenda that we are going to approve those reports. These are individuals who are not making budget reports this evening, and we're just going to approve their reports. You've all had the opportunity to look over those by your SharePoint. Now, there are three that are in this that do have budget amendments. So I'm going to ask for a motion just to approve the consent agenda with their just the reports, absent those budget amendments. Second. I have a motion down here from Mr. Irwin, and second by Commissioner Gurley. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that is approved. We'll begin with the budget amendment from the Paul's report. Michael. And I believe you're going to discuss some grants you're going to apply for too.
Yes, sir. Two budget amendments. The first one is to move money within our budget from our other salaries line item over to our veterinary services. We've done this a couple times this year. It's because we haven't been able to fill the full-time vet positions, so we're bringing in contract vets still. The second amendment is asking to move a couple $1,000s within our budget, as well as $12,000 from our Halls donation line over to building maintenance. We're having some issues with the lights in the dog adoption and stray areas. They're what I would call like an old gym style light. The ballast on those are starting to go out. It's cheaper for us to move those over to LED bulbs than it is to replace the ballast and the bulb. It's basically the same price. And we're also having some issues with all of our doors that the public use. They've reached their usefulness, and we're looking at having to replace those. The rods and them are not dropping like they should, so we've had some times where we can't lock the doors in the evening.
Okay. Any discussion on this amendment?
I'm responding to the amount. How much is the amount? Where's it coming from?
For the vet services, that's $8,000 coming into the budget. It's already budgeted for a full-time vet with vet services. And then the other one, the maintenance is $14,000, $2,000 from within my budget, and then $12,000 coming from the all donation line.
And that donation line is already funded?
Yes, that money is accumulated and carries over from year to year.
The new lighting situation that you're putting in there, is it similar to what they've been putting in our school systems for the last number of years?
I don't know that. I'm not familiar with what they've been doing in the schools. Basically, maintenance is taking down that housing, taking it back to their office, taking off all that old ballast stuff, and then putting that LED bulb straight in there and bypassing the ballast. They had looked into the cost of purchasing the ballast and the bulb, and it was basically equal to what the LED was. Of course, the LED is going to last much longer and use a lot less electricity, so we thought that was the right to go.
Sounds exactly like that.
Sounds the same.
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Second. We have a motion to approve and second. I'm going to call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peay?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner Serrano?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. That motion is approved. Now you got some grants, I believe.
A couple of grants that are coming up. The Animal Friendly Grant, which is from the state of Tennessee that we apply for every year. It's to fund spay neuter surgery for low-income residents. Typically with that one, we apply for a certain amount, and usually they kind of tell you whoever applies is going to divvy it up, so you never know what amount that's going to be. The second grant is through Pets Lawn Charities, which we've received several grants over the years from them. They have a transport grant that's going to be opening up in early April and would close before the next meeting. With that transport grant, we would like to apply for some additional crates as well as a new air handling system for the van that we use for the transport, so we'll provide better UV cooling in that van. I do not have a figure of what those items would cost at this point. However, it is no county money for either of those.
No matching funds.
Or you basically just give you permission to go ahead and apply for those grants, and then once they come in,
You'll have to come back if they are granted for us to accept them.
Yes, sir.
any discussion, anyone
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
approve? Second, Commissioner Santo. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Have a budget amendment from the juvenile detention.
Good evening. We have one budget amendment tonight. It's from within our own budget. We would like to move $3,000 from our contracted services to communication, and this will allow our 6 sergeants to have cell phones.
They don't have cell phones now.
No, sir, they don't. We've recently had to change how we manage the on-call system. We had a previous employee that mismanaged the personal cell phone numbers and home phone numbers of employees. And with these cell phones, we'll be able to contact those employees without violating any privacy that they have.
How's that handled in the correctional center?
I believe they have cell phones assigned.
Same way as your proposed?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had heartburn first about getting my cell phones. So I had to know what was good. Those would be done cell phones according to the school system. It's just, as long as we can control it, I'm okay.
Are these just for business use?
Yes, sir. They're not for personal use.
You got a motion on that?
Not yet. I'm waiting on that.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Second, Commissioner Warren. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Sheriff's, that's 3, I believe. Commissioners, these are located in their report. You need to look at them. Should have told you that earlier.
Well, reports first. And then it goes to, I've got 2 general fund amendments. One will be salary, and then bill 600 registered. Y'all have to go to that first.
Which one is yours?
It would be on 5, I believe, would be the first. General fund salary.
You mean page 6?
6, it's got, or just salary information. Assistant to.
Yeah, I'll send a major to
We were gonna do this with the new budget because we were supposed to budget finance, we have the money in there now to do this. We had a major to retire, and it's been what we've done in 2 years is we've taken that major and reclassified it as a captain. And it's just sort of narrowing our top end down, which it needs to be. But we're gonna go ahead and ask to do that now and move that major's position to a captain's position. The captain's not been hired yet, but it'll be ready for us to hire in late April. And then we're moving some other, we got a THSO corporal we would like to make a sergeant, and a range master and firearms instructor to the sergeant. That is all within our salary line. And then we will not have an administrative chief anymore. It will be a deputy chief over support services, which will take on more responsibility in support services at ESSA.
Any of these positions require replacement?
None of these are
Just in-
being, they're all
They're all
replaced.
realignments within our staff.
No additional staff?
No, sir.
But you're basically giving promotions to 3 individuals, and then you're downgrading 1 position.
I'm downgraded 2.
Well, actually, we're
Chief is down,
downgraded
and
2.
then that, my
It's all
position's up to.
administrative.
Right.
She's a chief deputy now, we're downgrading her to a deputy chief and a major captain.
But you're saying you were going to request this in this coming year.
I was going to,
We
until
were,
we look
but
at the
it's,
salaries.
Became available now that we can move within our budget. And with the mayor leaving, then it allowed us to go ahead and do what we've been looking for.
We've run into problems. The reason I'm asking, we've run into problems with this in the past where there was actually some promotions made. We had a set budget, basically where we're having full funds, undesignated fund balance now. This is
This comes
a
from budget
different.
finance, yeah.
Right.
They did this work.
Yeah. We didn't do this, they did it for us. To make sure the chairman just was in the budget as presented going into 1920 budget. And then with that anticipation, and then it just happened quicker.
So this would allow you to go ahead and hire that captain that's on now?
Well, what it's gonna do, it'll come from within,
In
and,
a- like- right.
so we're just, all we're doing is just taking a major position and replacing it with a captain. The major is retiring, so that'll take a lot.
Otherwise, you'll have May and June type.
And as far as the other realignments, this is keeping good. If you look across the state, our people that have been doing jobs at a lower level, we're trying to align ourselves the way it should be. Work through, trying to get out equal places with the other people in the state.
Make a motion, accept. Got a motion to accept, Commissioner Gann. Have a second, Commissioner Gordon. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
The second one is our sex offender registry training. I need to take money out of training and out of office supplies and put that into our other charges, which we take and have to pay TBI, their portion of the fees. And yes, we've had more than we anticipated this year, so our fees we're not out of money in that line item. And this is all within the same budget.
You just put in $1,800.
That will get us through. And I've made some changes for next year that we will have more money in that line item. It's the second time we have to do it.
Motion made, approved. Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Petty?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Got one more.
Narcotics, we're asking to move 30,000 out of April 2019 into the vehicle sale. And then purchase one. So then we sold three. That runs course, so we get all of several years.
Well, this is out of that fund that can't be used except for drugs. So I'll make a motion to approve this.
Motion made, approved. Second. Commissioner Earl. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Key?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Serena?
Yes.
Commissioner
Yes.
There's a request for us to apply for the first responders comprehensive eviction and recovery grant. It's up to about 800, from 250 to 800,000, but it will cover all first responders who get Narcan through the grant. So EMS, fire, us, and we are partnering with some community people having also.
This is a grant.
I think we had it last year.
We have a grant that's expiring next year. I honestly don't know if it's names like the if it's the same grant or not, but this became available to us. Which we couldn't find another grant, we were going to have to ask for funds to buy Narcan. So that's why this came along at a good time.
Would this require any matching funds? To approve?
Motion made to approve.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Like those that don't require money.
Well, this is just a pretty concept that I would like to present later on in the year, but I just need your approval to allow us to look at the concept of leasing our people. And we have to do that before we can even talk to anyone about it. So I would like to, I provided something for y'all to look at on the comparison. Our beneficial thing about leasing is the cycle of our vehicles. I mean, we have 12-year-old cars that we're using, putting a $3,000 transmission in a car that's worth $5,000. And it's not even the same to do something like that we do. So I think this would help us keep our fleet going, but we can't do anything until y'all at least let me explore that.
Really, all you're asking for permission to do is look for an alternative.
That's it.
You're making that motion?
Move to approve.
Second. Again, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
You're going to come back to us with the results no matter what they are? Let's take a look at it. Cool. I asked before your tenure about the possibility of front-wheel drive vehicles. You have the same opinion on that as no?
They do not. This has been approved several times, and that version we're on. But this, I think this here, actually, we learned about it from Mayor presented this to a commission meeting and had interest, so we inquired of him for the police vehicles. They are presently, who are looking at providing police vehicles to Chicago Police Department. So that's what got us interested. Here's an alternative, newer vehicles, cheaper cost, straighter cost for 4 years. So that intrigued us enough to want to look at it and see.
In the report, the questions are.
We already approved it. So changing that. Thank y'all
Very much, appreciate it.
All right, we'll move on to Judge Scott.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I should have taken the
increase mainly for contractor services, down on the bottom one, from 30 to 45. Of course, the raises for the staff. think our increase was maybe 7,000 or so from last year. I think.
It looks like it's about 16 over your amended.
Excuse me.
About 16 over your amended budget for this year.
16? I'll take that. And the other.
I mean, your original budget for 18-19 was 701, but your amended budget is 751.
750, right. So it is, but from the.
Okay, most of that comes in that 15,000 additional.
It does. And we also pay out of that also if we all have to conflict out and we can't get anybody else in the AOC to help us because the statutes is we have to go to our county, our adjoining county, and then sometimes I'll ask the retired judge to come in and we'll pay his hours and we all conflict out. Especially if it's someone that can't take leads for the AOC to help us get a substitute judge.
Judge, is this the person you want to introduce to his car?
He's working, but we can use him a little bit longer. We're going to run out if it continues the hours that he's working. He's retired from the public defender's office, Ray White. He was one of my very first magistrates with the judge's assistant. And then he went and became a public defender when he retired. And he lives in Wobbleville, if I'm pronouncing it, where they had all the rain. And he would park his truck across the river. True story, I'm telling you. And he would canoe back to his little cabin, and then he'd canoe back to the truck and come to work. And then, of course, there were a few days he couldn't come in at all. And we managed, made to reset a lot of cases. But yeah, that's how much he loves coming and helping us when we can. He's dedicated. I'm telling you, I used to tell Mayor Burgess where the love is in our court.
You don't have entry new panels in the budget.
No, I don't. I haven't asked for. He hasn't asked me for panels, but.
We have. That's how I learned about the canoe.
You have a recommendation?
I recommend approval.
Motion to approve.
Commissioner Central. All those in favor? Say aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Domestic violence court investigation.
Good evening.
Good evening. Where do you want to start? You've got revenue worksheet, public safety notes, budget worksheet. Any of that you want to report on? Or?
Well, we can start with the budget. It's basically a continuation budget.
Okay.
We take no funds from the county general. We're all supported through the funds that we receive. If you look at the revenue estimate worksheet, you'll see that we have funds there based on stock grant and assistance access grants that we receive. And then we also have a reserve of funds. So we don't take anything away from the county. We are self-supporting.
Just so I understand, your entire budget comes from grants?
It comes from grants, and then we have fees that we receive from the court.
Nothing from court taxpayers?
Nothing. I guess we could say the grants were, but it's federal grants, so nothing from Rutherford County.
This budget proposal, this year's budget proposal, is there a difference in monies, bottom line monies from this year that we're into the proposed budget for next year?
So this year that we're in versus next year, we are asking for a part-time staff that we do not have in the current budget. The reason for that is we're asking for a receptionist from 8 to 12. In the new judicial center, we have run into a problem because we're on the 3rd floor and the judge that we work with in general sessions is on the 2nd floor. All of the general session judges are on the 2nd floor. There are only 3 of us. So if one is helping someone, one is on the phone, one is on the 2nd floor helping somebody else, there's nobody manning the office. So we're asking for somebody from 8 to 12 so that they can help people that come in while we're unavailable.
What's the difference in that budget item, this proposed?
It's about 13,000.
And that's a half-time person. That's it?
That's it. And again, we have the funds to cover it. We're not asking for anything.
Just got a little over 300 in the reserves.
How's your caseload?
Well, if we look at the public safety notes, you'll see that for this past year, we handled about 958 cases. We had a slight decrease from the prior year. But even looking at that number, most cases will come back to court between 2 to 3 times. So you take that 1,000 cases and you multiply it by 3 because every time somebody comes, we have to assist them.
I don't know what questions we need to be asking. Mayor, you've had a chance to look at this and.
Well, yeah, and we talked about it for probably 30, 45 minutes. Wasn't a whole lot to talk about. But I do approve.
Motion to approve.
Second. Okay, and a second. Commissioner Irvin, second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. You still do a great job, and we appreciate what you do out there for us.
Thank you so much. You all have a good evening.
Fire and rescue. Price is right, come on up. And gentlemen, I think you do have the budget. When we pass these out, you can
Mr. Bill Shaker always liked a bigger copy, so I just specified it this year. It's easy to look at. Let me do my report.
Yes, please.
All right, for the month of February, Rutherford County Fire Rescue had a total call volume of 358 calls. Year to date, from January to February, we run 793 calls. Looking at the volunteer fire departments, total we had in countywide 34 structure fires, 24 brush fires, 24 vehicle fires. We had 4 hazmats, 229 NVAs, 1 extrication, for a total call volume of 1,036 calls. Next page is the,
Leslie,
yes.
quick question on that. If your call volume, your total was 793, and then the volunteers was 1036. Now, you responded to some of those volunteer calls, or we seeing the numbers that, or I assume you responded to some of those volunteer calls.
We feel that's included in there.
So what I'm trying to get at is, or if you took the numbers.
These total numbers right here, if there's a structure fire, a lot of times I'll get reports in from let's say you had a fire and went to a pipe. That'd be Kidder's first response. And a lot of times if last case comes, they'll put down structure fire. So I go down there and I count that as mutual aid.
Okay, I understand what you did now.
See, because it's a structure fire for Kidder, but it's not a structure fire for
It's a mutual aid.
Way it's counted in the equals. It's only a mutual aid call. Because if you didn't, then you'd have 400 structure fires.
Well, that's what I was getting at,
Candidate, but
because that's what I thought I was.
Yeah, I have to take every one of the reports and go down and look at it and see how they marked them. And I look at the address, and based on what that address is, if I live here at Pike, I'll come to the structure fire for Kittle, which is usually a call for everybody else. The next page is what I sent to the code department showing the structure fire and what areas they occurred in. The next page is the fire investigation results and what they were classified as. The next page is showing the smoke alarm installations that we did. We had 25 so far for the Tennessee State grant. The fire safety grant we had a canvas plan, but we canceled that because everybody was out busy, responding to flood victims and stuff. The next is a letter I received during the flooding that we got from a Stone River Center. The guys went out and pumped water out of the front yard. This is a home that houses mentally handicapped adults, and it started to flood the front yard. So we had a truck went out and actually siphoned all the water out of their yard and shot it across the field, and where they would have access to it getting out, and they sent us a letter thanking us for it. And that concludes my report.
Any questions on the report?
Motion to approve.
Motion made to approve the report. Second. Mr. Sampson, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
If you look at the budget, highlighted in green, I want to separate what our normal budget is, and I also wanted y'all to understand everything is in green will be covered by the grant. So that kind of gives you an idea. Everything is listed in there that's covered by the grant, separate from our total wages and salaries, except for the health insurance. And Mark Tucker figures that and sends it all at once. And so it'd be about probably if you look at the health insurance, probably about a third that would be covered by the grant. And according to Mayor Ketchum's instructions, took $50,000 out of the contract services, and that they would go to Fossville and incorporated that in my budget because they're transferred to the county.
Chief Barlow, you mentioned back on the green lines, you mentioned the grants, and obviously there's some newer commissioners and maybe some public that are watching that don't really know what you mean by those grants, so bring us up to date.
We got a second grant to hire 15 firefighters, which will be for our third station, and that grant covers 75% of their wages and salaries and benefits. And so what I've done, I just broke it down and showed what the grant's covering, how much it's covering everything in green, with the exception of the health insurance. We discussed the other night, about building more stations. When the next station is built, we'll put those 15 firefighters at that station and have a third staff station.
That grant covered 3 years?
Covers 3 years. It's 75% the first 2 years and 35% the third year.
We're in our second year.
We're in the first year.
So next year,
they were hired December 3rd of 2018. So next year will be the start of the second year.
okay. So at the end of the third year, all of this will be covered under the budget and not under grant.
That's correct.
But that's what we're expecting.
Yes.
And that's what we were expecting when we were talking right now.
And as we talked the other night about building 5 more stations in the next 10 years, the good thing about this grant, if y'all choose to go that route, the more we get these FEMA grants and we incorporate them into our budget and we keep these people, it gives us a higher probability of receiving those grants in the future. Because they see we're using them to build a department. Of course, that's every time we apply for that, they go before y'all, they have to approve that. And that's just a plus. Just out there letting you know. Try not to go up on a lot of things. I will bring your attention, if you'll notice, and the lines highlighted yellow is where I added money to that budget because of fossil. I took the $50,000 and tried to put it in on the station, internet, station repair, repair on apparatus, different things. One of the things I want to draw your attention to is line item 338, which is repair of vehicles. We've been buying a lot of new apparatus in the last couple of years. We met with the fire chiefs here the other night, and I told them if y'all approve this, we would try to do this. I went from $100,000 to $120,000 on our apparatus and maintenance budget because I want to be able to maintain all the county vehicles. I want to make sure that the preventive maintenance is done. If they have a repair that needs to be done, that way we're putting millions of dollars in apparatus, and I want to make sure that they're maintained. I think the volunteers do a good job of maintaining their equipment, but as volunteers come and go and you lose experience and gain experience, this way you just make sure we're providing oversight and fleet management where we make these vehicles last as long as they possibly can. That way I know for a fact that they're being, preventive maintenance is being performed, oil changes, transmission fluid, all that type of stuff. Because we hope to get 30 years out of these vehicles. So that's one thing I did go up on. I did go up on a little bit on the station repair because I picked up on the station. And you'll notice that the other contract service for $300,000 is $250 now because that's $50,000 I took and divided up for other things to cover for fossil addition. Also, because of the increased 15 people, I went up on the uniforms. We got 15 more people providing uniforms for. And I also went up on training a little bit. One of the things I'm going to call your attention to is down at 790. We usually put, we have $80,000 in the line item to put on some of these new trucks to buy a little bit of equipment. That some of these trucks are 25 years old. The equipment is wore out. I added $680,000 to that line item. If you remember, I've talked about we've got to have air packs that all the volunteers, their air packs are shot. I mean, they're out of date. They have nothing. And we put in a grant. We've applied for a grant 3 years in a row, and we've been turned down the last 2. And I put this in the budget that if the grant comes through, buy these air packs, that we can subtract $680,000 out of that line item. If we do not get the grant, then we have to buy air packs. Because I think these guys will back us up there and desperately need air packs. All volunteers. We've had a couple of grants where we got some, but the majority of this will go towards volunteer departments that provide them air packs.
When you say you're going to provide them, you're going to replace all their bottles that are bad? Or
we're going to buy bottles. We're going to buy the whole set, the harness, the backpack. Each pack will have come with a face mask, 2 bottles, and the whole backpack.
Well, what I'm getting is how many per station? Or per
only thing we'll do, we've written the grant to cover every seat that's in the apparatus. That's all they'll cover is how many seats you got in your apparatus.
Well, let me ask these guys, how many tanks do y'all need?
How many seats do we have?
Well, I want to ask that too, but I want to know how many tanks you need, or how many breathing apparatus you need.
Okay, we got 4. Tanker's got 4. So that's 8. 01 truck's got 2, so that's 10 air packs that we can.
And that's what we figured per department, that's 60 packs, and this should buy around 85 packs. But each pack comes with 2 bottles. And it's like, as you know, the air pack, SCBA, it's the whole new set. It's not everything's new.
Now, with that said too, when we get the new truck, we'll have to add 2 more to there. Because I just counted 2 for the old 1 truck, and the new truck will have 4.
Well, I've heard concerns from the departments that.
We've done more than that, they don't put the money in there.
Well, I'm just asking if we've got it covered, what trucks are out there. That's what I wanted to know.
But, I mean, it's, based on the package, every department had 10 packs. So we've tried to, we've got the calculations, got the report from all the fire departments, how many active seats they, how many seats they have, and that's what we written the grant for. But it's at the point where the air packs are obsolete and that the air bottles are out of date and they can't be used anymore.
10-year.
15
Is it?
on the composite bottles.
Okay.
And I've been preaching this for 3 years, letting y'all know that we applied for the grant, and that this year if we didn't get it, we have to move forward. So that's why I put that money in the budget. So we're hoping by June we'll get notified that we received the grant and we can save $680,000.
It's a familiar song. That's exactly what you said last year. And I hope we get it too.
But if we don't, I've got a plan for it.
It looks like, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Mayor, that the amended budget was $4,600,000 and the requested budget is $5,400,000, and most of that's in that $760,000 that he's talking about right there. So we're pretty close to a zero-based budget on this other. Do you have a recommendation? Any recommendation?
No, sir, Commissioner, at this point, I approved the last two budgets because there are only 2 part-time people. On these larger budgets that are more complex and comprehensive, I would like, and I encourage each committee to go ahead and make a decision tonight, but give me the opportunity. What I'm waiting on is to working with Lisa, the funding board. Once the state funding board meets the first week, I believe, of April. So we should have a fairly good idea as money's coming in from the state how much we have. I would like to be able to sit down with that and then ask each department as they came forward and met with Ms. Nolan and Mr. Sandler myself is to give me a once budget and a needs budget. And all of them have done that. So I would like to wait to see what I need to come back and recommend yes or no on these larger and comprehensive budgets, and we can go from there. But this is a good budget.
I've looked at, and I know Robert has too, especially the last 8 years or so, and seen this budget change. But although it's more, it's a positive change, and there'll be more positive changes over the next 5 to 10 years as we continue to grow and as the department needs to continue to grow.
Well, y'all been very supportive, and I appreciate that, buying everybody trucks, and this is a very much needed air pack, so I wasn't impressed. And like I say, we try to do everything we can about writing grants, and every year we learn something we could have done better each year. And so based on the past information, and of course a lot of it depends on what they're looking for, what is top priority. So, but they can typically we get this grant and save that much money. But if it doesn't, it's a very much needed equipment replacement.
Maybe 3 times the charm.
We hope
that it's important that we're sending our individuals into these buildings with.
It's enough to pay guys to do this, but when you have volunteers the rest of their life, we got to provide them equipment to go in there where they can not be exposed to this cancer causing.
Have you tried baking in addition to?
Well, we've done everything we can, bake, bar, and steel. Other than steel, we've done everything but that.
Do that every day.
Yeah, so I do.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve this and submit it on the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Rob.
Second.
Second.
Something I'll mention, the reason I was asking about the dare tax, it's something I've heard all the departments tell me that they need. So I want to make sure that we've got enough to at least get those trucks. Man, so,
Very important.
Most of the budget certainly help that.
Most of those air bottles have expired, right?
A lot of them are expired. Well, actually, we bought American just give me a little money to buy some last year. Just very few, but for the most part, they're all expired, so they make that use them.
Well, one thing too, that's not just an air bottle, that's also a pass
That's all
device.
bag.
And that by itself is, a safety device. Firefighter goes down,
A lot of the ones they have now don't have them, but these have the integrated pass device that's made into the pack. If a firefighter lays still for 30 seconds, it goes off. So if he goes down in that structure, it's blaring. And so that ray would go in and track him down and find him because of that pass device. Locate him more quicker. And that's integrated into it. So when they turn that ball on, it automatically kicks that off.
We have a motion to approve this budget and to send it on to Budget and Finance. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, sir.
How many firefighters here tonight? We got 2 here and at least 3 or 4 in here.
Thank you.
Appreciate what you do.
Thank you.
You got some ex-firefighters out here too, so.
Thank you as well.
Ambulance service report budget.
For those of you who don't know me, I'm Melanie Michaud, and I've been chosen to be in the hot seat tonight. Guess we'll start with the report.
Okay.
For the month of February, we had 2,441 calls. Our average response time was 6.8 minutes. And if I may say, I can't remember in years when our response time has been below 7 minutes. Number of DOAs for the month, 73. We had 15 autopsies. We billed $1,585,856. Total collections, $573,447, which make our year-to-date collections $5,427,134. And we're projected to collect $8,140,701. Percentage of collections for the month, 51%. We had insurance write-offs of $471,478, and other write-offs $250,374. And then the bottom is just the list of ambulances and fuel costs, maintenance costs, significant repairs. Any questions on the first page? Second page is just a list of in-services and training. Our TOPS team, our REACT and other special event standbys, and our special operations rescue team and honor guard. Next page is a summary of our sort calls. Excuse me, I've had this crud for 2 weeks. It just gives a breakdown of all the calls that our special operations team had. Then we have a breakdown of our sick hours, what it cost for February. And then we've got a couple thank you notes. Any questions?
Do we have any questions or a motion to approve the report?
Move to approve.
Motion to approve the report. Second. Commissioner Curran. All those in favor? Say aye. Motion carries.
And we do have 2 budget amendments.
Okay.
The first one, we received a check from one of the emergency department doctors for our EMS week. We tried to buy gifts for our EMS personnel from donations. This has nothing to do with taxpayer funds. We received a $500 check and we're wanting to deposit that into line item 499, which is in the DNTNS, which is designated just for donations. It's a derivative of the line item 499, but it's specifically for donations.
I'll make a motion to approve. Motion to approve this. Second. Second. Call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Okay, your second one?
Second one, our non-emergency transport division. We have increased the volume of calls significantly, and therefore we're using more PRN personnel and having to pay overtime. We're running 2 trucks a day, sometimes 3 trucks a day. And since we didn't start until September, we have a surplus in the full-time, 133, and we would just like to transfer $20,000 out of that and put $10,000 into our part-time payroll and $10,000 into the overtime pay.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
I know it's difficult to keep full-time personnel and sometimes even part-time personnel in our emergency services division. I don't want us to take people from that into this.
We have personnel specifically for the non-emergency transport team.
They're not EMTs.
They're basic EMTs, and then we have one advanced EMT. But the ones who are on the transport team are basic EMTs. Like I said, we've got 2 advanced EMT slots and 2 basic EMT slots. But right now, we've got 3 basics and 1 advanced. And then we just hired, Brian, how many did we hire?
2 part-time.
2 part-time on March the 5th. And they're working, and then our full-time people are working some overtime. The full-time people on the transport. We're not interchanging, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Okay. Any other questions? Have a motion. Motion made to approve. Second. Commissioner Earl, call the roll.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner Peak?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Now, since you brought this as an amendment, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you show me whether this division, since we're keeping this transport separate, is it making the county money?
So far, I can't tell you what we have paid out, but we have collected, as of today, $82,366.
You started when?
The end of September, I believe. Is that right, Brian?
1 week in September.
Yes.
How much did we spend?
I don't have that. I can get it to you.
I would like to see that.
Okay.
I'd like to see it.
See, when I say transport,
Yes.
when I say
Okay.
transport, I'm thinking career
I've run it, I just didn't bring it. Oh, Lisa's here. She has it. Okay.
That was like yesterday.
Okay, so
3, 1.
yes, please.
And it's hard,
So, yeah, it's, is this, oh, there we go. Yeah, okay.
but revenue is behind.
Yes, so,
I read this as a 24.
okay,
So we're still collecting.
52,390. And we have collected 82,366.
So you've got some more coming in.
Yes, we do.
Okay, so here's your number, 80.
Yes, that's,
A little behind, I mean, we're a little behind, but they, you know,
But we're billing more every month, and we're, you know, it takes a month or two to
September,
collect.
October, you've seen
Yes.
increases in
Yes, we
cost.
have, yes.
I did not know, is this something that's been going on for years or just?
We just started it in September.
But this is non-emergency or
Correct.
private service could probably do it instead.
Yes. But we, I mean, it's
I think projection is
profitable.
What's the liability on it, though, if you have a wreck?
We're all covered under the
patient.
insurance, no, under the county's insurance.
No, I'm talking
It's
about the
just a
patient.
different division of EMS, Rutherford County EMS.
If you're hauling a patient, you have a wreck, where's the liability on that?
It's a Rutherford County vehicle.
It'd be no
Well,
different,
it's
it'd be no different if it was an emergency.
No, I understand, it's just not
Yes.
a normal thing
Right.
that we do, is what I'm saying.
It is what
It'd
it
be, to me,
is
it'd be
now.
kind of like the sheriff transporting prisoners for somebody on the side. You know, not
This is to take
criticizing, I'm just saying.
patients to dialysis. Any patients who call 911, we have to send an EMS truck, a 911 truck. This is to take people to doctor's offices, doctor's appointments.
Is there a shortage of private ambulances? I mean, I feel like we're taking money out of somebody's pocket if we're doing it. I know we want to
I
make a
think,
profit.
well, I think the whole idea in doing this is to have less reliance on the cash property tax.
Yes, there was a vision that that we would be self-sufficient in a few years of doing this and not depending on any of the county taxpayer funds.
But you're using personnel. Does that pay for the personnel you're using, this 80-something now?
Yes, yes, yes.
The goal is that it will be a revenue. It's just, as I said, it just started in September. So I mean, we're very young.
I'm missing something.
Ron?
I'm not against it, I'm just,
This was brought before public safety 2 years ago, I believe, right now, last year.
Brian Yaker is here, he can explain.
And we had trucks, our ambulances that wasn't being used, and they could be used
Thank
for
you,
this. And that's when
that's right.
This is Brian Yaker, he oversees the non-emergency transport division.
Well, I'm not double, I'm not.
Well, no, I mean, he can just answer the
I mean,
questions better than I
I'm just
can.
a little bit,
Right.
you know, kind of, I know we've got a function to do when we do these services, on that, but if we're doing something private, kind of, it just me, maybe nobody else, but it bothers me where it seems like we're taking money out of somebody else's pocket that works in this county, that's making a living. In that sense, and that's the only way I feel.
It was presented to us originally, I think, that they were having trouble with private ambulances being able to do this service. So that's something I think we may want to look at come at a 1-year anniversary of this service and look and see, number one, what's the profitability of it? And number two, what's the liability of it? And number three, not necessarily in this order, are we competing with private ambulances? In other words, is there a deficiency? And so I really think that we ought to put on our agenda come in September or so to take a look at it, 1-year anniversary.
Yeah, most definitely, because if I was little Johnny, they didn't get by us at Christmas, I might be upset. You know, I'm not criticizing.
Right.
I'm just, something doesn't sink in right.
I do know that in the past, we have gotten, before we started this division, we have received calls from nursing homes, doctor's offices, patients' homes that they needed to go to a doctor's appointment and they couldn't get one of the private services to take them. I mean, I know that we had received them in the 911 office.
That's not gonna make a difference to me. It's not that I don't care about patients and stuff, I'm saying, you have a private entity out there. If it's a shortage, maybe we need to push small business to get more involved in it, maybe, but somewhere, I'm just saying, the numbers are not clicking with me, I'm sorry.
I think it
criticize y'all,
sounds
do a great
good,
job.
you know, unless you have a parent or somebody that needs that service. And, you know, we relied on you know, because we called private services several times, and they told us had a, you know, it'd be a 4, 5, 6 hour
Right.
wait. And, you know, when somebody has to get to the hospital, she's wheelchair bound, you know, to get there. And I think, that's my opinion on it.
I think when we approved this, it was kind of, well, let's see what comes of it.
That's pretty much it. It was somewhat as what Commissioner Irwin said, that we were having situations where people were needing service. And we thought we could do it at that time, but it doesn't hurt. You know, it won't be a year old until September. And we take a look and see, okay, where are we? How is it now? What's happening in the county? And take a look at it.
Let's show them that rest.
And see where we are. Okay, let's move on. I think you go into the budget.
Thanks. Okay, do we want to go line by line or what?
I believe you want to show us what changes you have there.
Okay. All of the payroll line items, we were told to give a 2.5% increase. And in our 105, we are requesting to raise the community relations position from a paramedic position 28 to a grade 31, which is where our station managers are. And in line 119, also a 2.5% increase. And we're raising the pay grades 16 for ladies in the office to an 18. Paraprofessionals, 133, 2.5% increase. We're also requesting 6 new paramedics for our special operations team. Questions?
Which was the pay grade that you were changing? Which was that? What line item was that?
105.
Okay. And you were changing it from 16 to 18?
No, that was in 119. 105, we're changing from a 28 to a 31, just one person.
And 119 is changing one grade?
Yes, 3 people.
What's the procedure to go about doing that?
Sonia redid the evaluations. Yes.
Very good. Thank you.
We're ready for 148 dispatchers, 2.5% increase, when we're also requesting 3 new dispatchers. And they're also getting pay grade increases from 16 to a 20. And that was another reevaluation for Sonia.
Were these increases due to the fact that we're having problems in hiring or keeping people? Is that what we're looking at?
I think so. We've had a turnover in our dispatchers. But I think she was getting them more up to speed, and she can speak for that.
Between the salary evaluation and turnover, keeping it in line, trying to also assist the sheriff's office with their communications, because it's not only just the ambulance service, but this will also be in the sheriff's budget for their communications officers as well. Trying to align them the same so that we have consistency within the departments.
Thank you.
Maintenance personnel, just 2.5% increase. Our part-time personnel, we're requesting a decrease of $100,000. We haven't spent as much this year as we have in previous years. Longevity pay, we have more people who have seniority. We are requesting a $100,000 increase in our overtime. We requested a budget amendment last month because we're going to be over budget due to we have a lot of people out on FMLA, and we've had a big turnover too. Let's see, okay, for our contracts, if you go down to 312, we've increased, we're adding CAD and radio license to Interface ESO, which is our billing software, and the CAD, which is computer-aided dispatch. If you have questions about that, I'll have to call Rebecca. Ms. Joe Johnson is here if y'all have questions about concerning the radio license. Our engineering services are the same, but instead of last year we had looked at Las Casas, now we're looking at Rockville. Our evaluation and testing, 322, we're decreasing our request because HR is paying now for pre-employment physicals. We're just keeping some in there for accidents. If one of our paramedics is involved in an accident, we send them for an alcohol screening. We're requesting a 2.5% increase for our medical director. There's a $300 increase in pest control. We had previously had termite treatment in 335, the building maintenance, and we're just moving that to the pest control line from 335. Travel, we're requesting more. Our radio technician needs to attend some conferences, and we have a vacancy in the office right now, and when we hire for that, this person will have to become a compliance officer and also go for the billing software, billing compliance. $399, we've had an increase in pauper burials. In the past few years, we normally only have 9 or 10 a year. And as of today, we have already had 9. We're responsible to bury anyone who doesn't have family, and that has increased. We've already had 9, so we're looking at maybe 14 to 15 this year. We just never know.
I did, Mr. Chairman, I had our new attorney look into that. That was one of his first job tasks. I asked him to check with Evergreen Cemetery. We can, as these paupers become part of our responsibility, there's a section at Evergreen where we could have now cremated and ashes dispersed within that area of Evergreen at a much cheaper rate than having to open a grave site and bury them properly.
It just looks nice.
Yeah.
I mean, like I'm there. Good point. Does this line item reflect what you just said, or is it?
No, it does not. Make adjustments.
And how many? I'll take that's quite a few a year there. When it gets down to it,
as our population increases, so a number of them are homeless and have
no
families, and so we're having to take care of that. But we did check with Evergreen, so it's cheaper for us to cremate and disperse than mortuary.
Right now, we are using mortuary in Nashville. They give us a discount for cremation of $695, but still, that's
it just surprised me that many people want to claim like that. That's sad.
very sad.
You look at our total population, it's a real small percentage of it.
That's true. Custodial supplies, we're decreasing our request there, 3,000. $411, data processing, We need to purchase additional monitors and KVM switches for our dispatch. They weren't replaced, they're supposed to be replaced every year, and we did not replace them last year. Office supplies, we are requesting a decrease. Uniforms, we are requesting an increase of $10,000 for our non-emergency transport personnel, and also the price increases for our uniforms.
I have a question there.
Okay.
Why is that there are the uniforms for non-emergency personnel in the emergency budget?
We just haven't had a line item in our non-emergency.
It needs to be.
Okay.
Because we're asking for
Right.
$10,000 more out in the emergency budget, but yet we're saying the non-emergency budget is going to be self-sustaining and not cost the county anything. That doesn't really make sense.
We can do that. Utilities, we're requesting a decrease. If you look at 530, assessments and penalties, you'll notice that we're requesting zero. The state has eliminated the TennCare reimbursement program, where we would pay them and then we would receive more money. And they have eliminated this program. $599 of the charges. This is for our special operations and community-related events. Our community relations person is out in the community more, and we're having more and more events that he has scheduled. So we're requesting an increase in supplies for him. Building improvements, we're requesting, in addition to the special operations building, to remodel the education room at Lytle Street and security fencing at our dispatch. The remodeling of our education room at Lytle Street, we use that room not only for EMS personnel, but we also teach classes to other agencies, and we do charge other agencies. And we haven't done anything to that building since the remodeling of Lytle Street. Nothing in the back was remodeled.
I assume the SOAR addition is what we've been talking about for 2 or 3 years now, adding on additional building at the back of SOAR.
Yes. Uh, 708, requesting an increase for technology enhancements for the CAD system, camera system upgrades. Any questions so far? 709, requesting an increase. We're requesting to put tough pads on all ambulances, and this is for our ESO software to enter the runs. And we need to replace all computers in dispatch. Motor vehicles, requesting 4 new ambulances, 2 remounted ambulances, a new sort truck, and 3 new admin vehicles.
Can you sort out the cost on those?
Yes. The gasoline ambulances are $130,000 each.
Those are the 4.
Yes, the 4. Yes, sir. And 2 of those are walks. 2 remounts, and those are $89,000 each.
Sort truck.
The sort truck is $541,000.
We had that in there last year.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to speak to that. I told Melanie I was going to speak to that. That was requested 3 years ago. That truck was bought in 2006, and at that time there was no other rescue other than the rescue squad, which is volunteer. That truck has run countywide for 10 years. It's got over 230,000 miles on it. It stays broke down when it stays up, and right now it's down right now. So I depend on that truck to cover extrication in this county from Franklin Highway all the way to the county line at Laverne, because they cover the interstate and they cover Allenville and all that. So I would like to, from what my 2 cents is worth, I think that's a very much needed piece of equipment.
I remember being in there last year. We discussed that pretty heavy.
And we're requesting 2 Ford Explorers, $33,000. Now, the mayor had asked if we could use Ford Edge, is that right?
Yeah, the Ford Edge is just, you only have one supervisor in it. It's a step down. It's still all-wheel drive. It's an SUV, just smaller, about $6,000 or $7,000 cheaper. And if they said they carry supplies, so if it's only one person in place, so you got to pay for supplies.
It's not knowing where those, it's like police package vehicles, just street.
They're street, and the ones that we get my supervisor, they can dress them up, put the framing on it, but through the lease program. But they don't fine for like the lease package. So they show up on the scene after the scene's already worked.
So the vehicles they're replacing, what kind of shape are they in?
We've got several that have over 100,000. Are you talking about the ambulances or the admin vehicles? Admin vehicles, yes. We have 2 that have over 100,000 miles. And we're also requesting an administrative truck, which is $35,000. And that's going to replace a 2002 Chevrolet. And I don't have the mileage, but it does have high mileage because it's 16 years old. And the price of the ambulances increased $3,000 each this year from last year.
How many did we purchase last year?
2. And 2 vehicles.
You requested 3 last year?
We requested 3, yes.
I know we approved 2.
Any more questions about the vehicles? Down to 735 health equipment. It's a big increase from 178,000 to 658,000. 420,000 of that is for the CPR compression devices. These are devices that actually do CPR for you. And they are $15,000 each, and we're requesting $28,000. And then, of course, power stretchers are also in there.
Those are wants.
So that's a want, yes. The compression devices, that's a want, yes.
So these devices might make it less necessary for a firefighter or someone, or a police officer or somebody to ride in an ambulance going to the hospital while you're transporting, performing CPR, because anyone who's ever performed CPR knows that you become very tired very quickly. So this is a mechanical device, I understand, if I'm understanding right, correct, that would do this for you.
Questions?
How much of this increase is actual increases to salary? Do you have that list over? Do they have that?
I don't, in what I brought.
The reason I'm asking that is it's important to me that we're able to keep these people. I think we're going to have to be competitive with what we're offering on salaries. I would like to see a salary range on some of these other agencies.
Are you, if you're just asking about the base salary, the step with the changes to the 20, is that what you're talking about?
Right.
Okay, that number is, right here. Make sure that this one.
What I asked Mr. Chairman was to all the different departments look to that 2.5% increase to live in the entire district.
Without the 2.5% that he speaks of, just on the base, if that wasn't approved, it's 130,000 for step increases and to realign those communications positions. It's $130,158. But that does not include any pay, salary, survey information. It's just base steps and realignment.
Okay. And I'm assuming that this is, of course, a large item or a large budget that you're wanting to withhold of.
Yes, sir. Because there's a lot of want numbers in there as well as their needs. And like we work with the next department, once she gets her numbers in, we can better determine where we need to make cuts, and we'll come back at that point in time.
And I don't feel good about making a recommendation on that without just taking the wants out on, carte blanche. Especially want to do that. This sort truck, that's something I think we're going to need to look at. We don't address it now. We're going to have to do something here. So
that's much needed.
We've kicked it down the road for several years.
At least the last 2, maybe 3.
Well, my question on that too would be, do we need that expensive of a vehicle to do the rescue, that sort of rescue work that it's doing? You got one of your men want to come up here and talk to that, or you may talk to
Adam. That's why I'm probably
Is there another vehicle?
Right, that's what I'm getting at.
This is Adam Rose.
Are we looking at vehicles similar to what FAR has?
Yes, sir. So what we went out, we had they used for our apparatus. And so since they already bid all that out, we don't have to bid it. We use the same manufacturer. And we basically had a sales rep come out and we showed them all the equipment we carry in our sort truck. And he kind of went through it and kind of gave us an idea of how it would fit on the type of apparatus they would sell us and things like that. And so, and that's how we come up with that big number of 541,000. Now, the truck that we would look at is actually a little bit shorter. It's just built a little bit better and more compact to hold our equipment. It's also built, our current truck is a Freightliner business class, which is more of an over-the-road truck, where the Ferrari is it's a custom apparatus. Same thing, very similar to what Rutherford County Fire uses, and it's built for more stop and go, going around curves with heavy weight on it.
What's his life expectancy?
I would say, it depends on how much we run every year. We're putting about 20 to 22,000 miles roughly, in our zone on the truck we have now. So with a good maintenance plan, we're looking at anywhere from 5, 10, 15 years. Of course, our current truck is an 06, and it's at the end of its life. So we've done really good with the truck we have now.
they take a trade-in on those or? I'm serious.
Not that one they wouldn't.
You're assuming it's worse.
Not that one they wouldn't.
I'm not exactly sure. I'm not.
You'd have to tell it to them.
But obviously Larry's department has, or Chief Farley's department has sold some apparatus. We might be able to.
We're probably going gov deals.
Yeah, we're not against that idea or, looking into something like that.
Well, I know fire apparatus you
Yes.
can, so
Yes.
that's why I was asking. I'm not familiar with your rescue equipment.
Right. With almost 230,000 miles, I don't think we get much because that is extremely high mileage on an apparatus. But like I said, we are open to that idea to help curb that big cost.
Chief, what have you been getting out of your vehicles? 20, 25,000, something like that?
We're averaging about 20 to 25,000 a year because we're running everything in the county between the two stations.
No, I mean, as far as
Selling.
old equipment.
Oh, we've been getting all equipment that's 25 years old.
12, 15,000.
Yeah, we get, that's good. That's if it's, depends on what kind of shape it's in.
Right.
Now, this sort truck is not the same as the rescue trucks at the fire.
No, and it don't have a pump. Don't have water on it.
Is that piece of equipment on any kind of a state recommended bid situation?
The fair is on state bid. We don't get that.
No.
It's not?
No.
That's not?
It's available on purchasing consortiums such as HGAC or Buy Board, MPP. So they're purchasing consortiums. That's how we're buying that. That's how we purchased ours the last 4 years is off of purchasing consortium, but it is not available on a state contract per se.
Not available.
No, sir.
But that's a contract.
It is a contract. So you're buying into another department bid as well? We purchased ours through the Houston Galveston area consortium. It's a big purchasing consortium in Texas that use it. And
Right.
it cuts out the bid process, which can save you anywhere from 2 to 3 months sometimes.
Right.
So it is bid, but it keeps you from having to bid it.
Yeah, so we went with what they're happy with their product, and it would be similar fleet, so I thought that would be a good idea to have a similar fleet.
You have, 4 ambulances in here?
Yes, sir. And 2 remounts, 4 new ambulances, 2 remounts.
On the ambulances, are they wants or are they?
2 are wants, 2 are needs.
What about the remounts? That's the long.
I'd say those are needs.
Mr. Mayor, when it comes time for this to be presented to the budget committee, would you have a recommendation ready?
Absolutely.
I'm only seeing 11 vehicles that we just got that have less than 100,000 miles in terms of, so it's pretty big. We have more than 11 vehicles. There's only 11 vehicles. Everything else has 123, looks like it's the next lowest value. So we don't have a big surplus of vehicles with low mileage.
See, we've done this before. We've cut our numbers of how many that we purchased, and all of a sudden we catch ourselves where we're needing more vehicles.
I think we have some needs to put more ambulances on the road. I mean, the response time is, I agree with what you said a minute ago. I've been harping on this for 3-4 years now about response times. I'd like to get it down to 6 minutes, but there are areas where the response time is 3 times that much. And the only way to get it down is to get ambulances closer to those areas to have those kinds of response times. And so, yeah, I think the ambulance is almost a no-brainer. We've got to get them.
Lisa, I want to add something. Maybe you can help these departments do that. For instance, in her explanation column, right next to that is department request. Usually we wouldn't see a mayor's recommendation too. but can you give us the increase, when we have an increase, and we put that in that explanation column too? That would help me go through this a lot quicker, but.
Yeah, some of the departments drop that in,
Right.
you know, they just go ahead and add it.
It'd be a lot easier, especially if we're looking at this, and I don't think I've got time to go through all these.
I don't have but one copy, but
Anybody want to make a suggestion? I'm starting to hear crickets and I'm ready.
I don't mind forwarding this to budget without a recommendation. Now, I think we do need information the mayor requested from the state to see what our revenue's going to be. And for a budget this large, is, you know, I don't want to slash something that I may regret. And, you know, I think this sort of stuff is one, that's a lot of money for one truck, one vehicle, but, you know, that's something maybe y'all need to show me, but I'll dig in some information on it myself. I'll make a motion forward without a recommendation to put it in.
I'd like for you to put $10,000 there for this year. But that belongs in the non-emergency.
I think that was a mutual agreement budget already.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, got that motion second. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
I'm gonna give you this back, but I would like a copy of that.
you can keep it. I've got it on the computer and I can send it to you.
All right,
Did you send it to public secretary, please?
Are we going over the non-emergency transport?
Yes, please.
And I do have hard copies of any books. Thank you. I helped at the beginning. Baby's already got one. You want one? Oh, yes. Everybody have one? Okay, for the non-emergency transport division, right now we have we have 2 advanced EMTs and 2 basic EMTs full-time. And we are requesting to add 1 paramedic and 1 advanced EMT for a total of 6 full-time personnel.
Can you just, Mr. Shoto, I don't mean he's putting you on the spot. He's done a wonderful job so
Well,
far.
thank you. So I will answer what I could.
Is there an explanation as to why we need more personnel? Are we not responding the way we should, or?
This is for the non-emergency transport. We are making more and more calls every month, and right now he's having to use his PRN. That's why we asked for the transfer and overtime to staff, because we started out with 1 truck a day and now we run 2 trucks and sometimes 3 trucks a day just to keep up with the demand.
So the budget that's set for this year is expected to be self-sufficient, in essence, self-supported?
At some point, I don't know if it will be by the end of the fiscal year, but probably by next year, yes, sir. That's what we're speculating.
So with the increase that you're requesting, that would also be true?
Yes, sir.
Lisa, do you have any input at all there?
You know, we still have a lot of history. You know, and as Melanie said, when we close our books at June, you know what we're saying, the revenue is lagging. You know, when we close our books, which is 3 more weeks into the next, you know, July, we'll try to, you'll have firmer numbers to know for that period of time what the revenue and expenses will be.
Question adding paramedic, what is the justification for a paramedic on the non-emergency non-emergency ambulance.
Brian, do you want to answer that?
To do the hospital transfers, hospital to hospital going to Nashville. There's some days that there's people need to go to Nashville and they may have to wait 2 hours to get, and they don't want to tie up a 911 truck to make those calls.
Is that a requirement to have a person with that
They're gonna do that.
qualifications to do that
Yeah, I
transfer?
mean, if they're going to do a critical.
If it's an advanced life support transfer, it would be. So if they need EKG monitoring or have IV drips or whatever.
If it were not for your department, what would happen to those patients?
They would find somebody to take, I mean, somebody would eventually take it.
I think that kind of gets back to the question that Commissioner Gannon was asking a little bit earlier.
And there are, there's 3 that I know of locally that are in Murfreesboro, 2 of which have been here for a long time. But people continuously come in from Nashville because this area has a lot of that type business. And kind of our plan was, we've thought about this for years, was to offset some of the cost of the 911 trucks. And this county's growing, and those call numbers, like we were.
How many times are we caught short from our 911 because we're transferring somebody to Vanderbilt or to?
Well, on the non-emergency side, never, because those calls, they come.
Before we started this, we were getting caught short.
Because if they can't find anybody else to take them, they know if they call our 911 dispatch, they're going to get a truck in 7 minutes.
Then aren't you going to determine whether it's an emergency or not at that point?
Well, that won't, if it goes to our 911 dispatch, it won't come to me. All of these non-emergency calls all come to me and I answer those calls. And most of what we're doing is hospital discharges.
But you're saying these people are actually calling 911, so they don't have to wait there.
Well, the hospital would have to call 911.
hospital.
These are patients that are in a hospital.
Those hospitals need personal ambulances.
Yeah, they have some, but they keep on doing.
St. Thomas has one, I believe.
They have they different levels of staffing, different days.
And we're still checking into one of the agencies. There are, I think, 3 private agencies. One, it's my understanding we're checking on it, but they don't pay a business license. They're not, they just are renting space here in town and not really paying their way. The other 2 are.
And I want to make a point, Mr. Mayor, you made a good point. Before we started this non-emergency transport division, we were getting the calls to transport patients from a hospital because they could not get convalescent service to take them. So they would call us because they knew, and then that would tie up an ambulance going to Nashville. So,
Because with some of the other providers, it matters what insurance they have. With us, when they call me, I just take the call and we make the transport.
Y'all done an absolutely great job. I mean, really have, but I just got done 100% against this. I'm sorry. I just don't think we need to get in private business.
There are times, and it probably is way more often than I think about, as a commissioner, when I'm presented something I don't know what to do, and this is one of them, with the same motion that Robert made earlier, be appropriate forward this on the budget without a recommendation through the mayor's office.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Chairman,
I agree with you.
I'll take that motion.
I'll go ahead and second that. You know, I think you know, we need to have a serious discussion about whether we want to continue doing that. But I'm beginning to recall some of the discussion. I got it secondhand because I don't think I was on public safety at that time. But I do recall that we weren't looking so much as a conflict of going against or competing with private businesses. It was more to make sure that we've got people that were getting where they need to get. And there was potential to make money. So that part is correct.
And some of the private companies, if they have medical conditions and on oxygen, too much transport.
All of the ambulances should.
Yeah. You know, our mother-in-law, she married, she had medical conditions. She was wheelchair bound. We couldn't move on her own. And we'd call people and they'd come out there, and because of the oxygen and the equipment she had, they didn't feel qualified. So it was like, we spent most of our day trying to get somebody to get her to where she needed to go. And that was
I have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is that everything dealing with the budget?
Thanks,
Thank you, Dave.
Well, we appreciate you coming in and sitting in on this.
Thank you. Great job.
We hope the seat wasn't too hot for you.
I don't think so.
Probation report and budget.
Excuse me.
Good evening.
Good evening. Would you like to take a small little report from the Commissioner for the T program? So what this is this is an agreement that we've already had in place with the University of Tennessee, as well as Belmont University, to allow, I have an occupational therapist on staff at the recovery courts. This allows us to take 4 grad students each semester, and we can use those for, it's $80,000 per person savings. So we will receive $340,000 in services just to have service agreement to teach their students occupational therapy and mental health setting. And this agreement basically just affiliates their with the university and this will give the mayor the authority to sign this on behalf.
Taking those students, will that give you the information, reliable information that you might need?
Yes, sir. It is. It's helpful because on a lower scale ratio, we can provide one occupational therapist to one individual. It allows 4 or 5 at once, so we can have a bigger bang for the buck, so to speak.
So even though they're not, quote, licensed or trained or whatever, you're still going to get the information. You think you're going to get the information that you need.
Yes, sir. And they're under supervision of licensed occupational therapists. They are set in the boundaries of what they're able to perform and the duties that they're able to do. A lot of this is life skills. Taking these clients to the grocery store, which we take for granted, finding the right foods to cook, how to prepare a meal, how to cook, the nutritional value, medication management, those kind of things, how to do laundry, how to clean, those kind of things, and they're able to work with them in their home setting.
How long have you been doing that?
We just started this in the last year, well, end of 17, so a year and a half.
Were you asking for more of those individuals this year, or about the same? Or?
This semester alone, I've had 8, so this will be another agreement for UT Chattanooga. Believe it or not, there's very limited employment places around that have ATs in a mental health setting. There's getting to be more and more for that 8. We just have to be on the cusp of that and creating that. So I think we're way ahead of the game in this state. We're the only recovery court in the state that has an OT license on staff. So I think we're moving it in that regard.
Mr. Chairman, you need a motion on this?
We'll need one to accept his report.
I'll move to accept the report, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that in a second. All those in favor of accepting the report, say aye. Aye.
Well, now we need to do something.
To give him authority for the agreement.
But that's different than the report. Okay, so your motion was to approve this. Okay. Is this an original or just another copy? Does this need to go to budget for any reason?
Okay, we'll start with probation. It's the easier of the two. Believe it or not. I will probably more than a few departments that are going to come to you, and I'm actually decreasing my budget from last year. About 120,000.
Are you taking a pay cut?
I'm not taking a pay. I don't even take pay from probation. I do that free of charge. But we are making, after speaking with the mayor and the deputy mayor, and Lisa, we are looking at ways in which we can save money, services that we're providing, things that are costing the county money, things that we can get rid of. There are other providers out there, scram, the scram races, alcohol races for those individuals that receive a DUI on bond conditions, for them to get out of jail, not to have their case adjudicated, but pre-adjudication, they're required to wear a device. So some pay, some don't. We are not making money on that. We are losing revenue, and I don't think it's in the best interest of the mayor. And I've spoken about that, and I think that's something that we can steer away from. There isn't a provider here that can provide those services. So those individuals that need that can't have that service provided, and that will save us money. Also, with the way we kind of restructured some of our employees and the insurance, to that degree, even giving a one-step increase in the pay, we are still 120,000 short. So we are, I'll grab this one.
I think anyone that brings up the budget decreases should immediately have to approve.
So you're making that motion?
I'll make that motion.
And Commissioner Shanto?
Did it get immediately approved?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the recovery court, we are asking for a slight increase. It is about 66,000 from last year. So part of that is adding a new position for the reentry program. As you're aware, we hired a reentry coordinator to start looking at programs in the workhouse as well as the jail to hope to curb those recidivism rates. I'm looking at hiring a case manager to follow that happy care. One person alone cannot handle 1,200 plus inmates at any given point. So as we begin this, I need an additional staff person to help offset that our employee needs. We'll look at grants in the future to try to cover the cost as we expand our services. But there is one position that we are requesting. The other reason for the increase, as we'll get through it, one of my part-time service for 12, 13 years is retiring in May. It is difficult to find a full-time therapist, let alone a part-time. We have been searching and cannot find anyone that will take it with the rate of pay that we're willing to pay on a part-time basis. So we are converting that to a full-time. So between the two, and then some reductions of other areas, believe it or not, it's still ongoing up 66,000 overall for last year's budget positions, including the insurance on those.
Mr. Chairman, let me make a motion to approve and forward the budget committee with a positive recommendation. But before we kind of go any further, I just every year continue to be impressed with workload that you guys are assuming year after year after year, what you're able to accomplish with what you have to work with. It's just an outstanding job. And we've got a couple of departments that have really blossomed in the last few years. And Mr. Kinger is one of our congratulations for the work that you do, the job that you do for the county.
I would second that, both in regard to the budget and comments.
And then the other thing, we did go up a couple, just I want to be just in full disclosure. We did increase certain line items, specifically 499, as well as our training line item, but that is to cover the cost of the influx of clients that we're taking in to cover their drug screens and so on. But we are bringing in, on this budget for every report about 1.5 million, we are bringing in about 900,000 revenue from grants, tax funds, and other contracts that we have. So at the end of the day, 600,000 to do this and save it from the sheriff's jail. I think it's a no-brainer. It's $18, $19 a day versus $60.
Also notice that many of these line items decrease when the actual working class.
We're saying to the mayor that we're looking at ways to save. I'd rather, if we're not going to use it, we're not going to give it back. If we can look at it for other purposes, don't need it, we don't need it at all. We don't want to be taking it just to find something to spend it on.
Okay, any other discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? I'll pass that budget on. We are now, ready for the communications discussion. Gentlemen, before we begin that, I'm going to give about a 5-minute recess for everybody to stand up, count your change, or whatever else you want to do. And then we'll start back here at about 25 after. Ladies and gentlemen, since we've got everybody in here pretty much, so we're going to begin. If we'll remember at our last meeting that we deferred this until this meeting to discuss it a little bit further. And I believe everybody has received information either by hard copy. I know there is a copy of it that come through the EMS. I believe it's in here tonight. Did you have that? So everybody, I believe, has had time to see what was presented at that time. And then Commissioner Gurley has done a yeoman's job, I would have to say, of coming up with a lot of information. He's worked hard and brought us a lot of information and individuals to talk to us about a lot of the things we're needing here in this county. Whose presentation is this first?
That's Motorola's.
Motorola's, okay. Is that where we want to start, since that's first on the screen? And we'll begin that way and work our way down. If anybody brought popcorn or peanuts or Cokes or whatever, we can take it. But we'll start with that.
Well, the two gentlemen from Motorola are Alex Sherman and Mr. Joe Gordon right here. And I think Alex is going to be the one who's going to talk through the slides here briefly, just to get everybody a basic understanding.
So, just want to say thank you. My name is Alex Sherman. I'm the new Motorola account rep from Middle Tennessee. Took over for Chuck Jones. Many of you may know him as well. So, just a little bit about myself. I, like Mr. Gurley here, was an engineer. I've worked on systems all over the world. I designed a 150-site system in Australia. I designed the City of Memphis system, the recent P25 acquisition they did a couple years ago, as well as the local government system as well, the Murfreesboro system. So I have a pedigree that's very engineering based, but I'm here today as your account rep.
And they didn't move into sales because you screwed anything up.
Well, I'm going to ask you if radios work different down that area.
No, they work the exact same, actually. They work the exact same. You hold them right side up and they still work. So,
So Joe Gordon, I'm the sales manager for Arkansas and Tennessee. So Alex and 4 or 5 other guys work for me, and we have a lot of business in the state. One of our biggest customers is sitting right behind me, state of Tennessee. So we certainly appreciate your time, and we'll try to get through this. answering your questions as efficiently as possible. So,
Done. So let's get into it. So as an introduction, so those of you that don't know what P25 is, I believe most of you do. However, if you don't, P25 radio is Project 25. It is a standard for public safety radio. It's something like the gas pump at every gas station. Every car is designed to the same spec. You put a gas pump in the same car, it fits every single one. That is P25 radio for public safety. So why does digital radio matter? So that's kind of the big topic, why digital over analog. Analog is a past technology. Digital is more suited to what happened a couple of years ago with narrowbanding. So digital radio is clear, crisp voice up to a cutoff. With analog radio, you have a lot of trailing effects and a lot of popcorn. What digital radio does is eliminate all that.
Static, right?
Static. Popcorn and static, correct. So what we have presented today is simulcast technology. So currently, TACAN, the state system, in this local area operates in an ASR form. So it's a standalone site. So many have kind of alluded to this over the coverage studies, that how the systems work today, local versus TACAN. And simulcast matters because it gives you multiple receive sites. So instead of connecting to one tower and one tower only, you actually connect to all towers at once. It forms it into one cell, multiple loading receivers, multiple transmitters. So that is, I'll kind of touch on that later with the in the coverage slides, but that is the main difference. As well as simulcast is spectrally efficient. So if we were to put up ASRs in this area, it would require a lot of frequencies and procure a lot of frequencies. Simulcast uses the same frequencies at every single site. So it's spectrally efficient.
It's good for public safety because every time you key up the radio, all your transmit sites turn on at exactly the same time. So for any building coverage, so the public safety guys that go in and out of facilities, simulcast is a much better technology for that.
Good. So moving on, who in Tennessee is P25? So a lot of your neighbors directly around you are P25, more specifically Motorola P25. There's Davidson County, Williamson County, Wilson County, and the city of Murfreesboro is P25, as well as quite a few others across the state on the state system as well. Lebanon, Smyrna, Dyersburg, Chattanooga, Knoxville, they're all in the state. So why is P25 important? It's day in and day out, the interoperability between all of these systems is key. When it matters most, you can talk to all of your neighbors, and all of your neighbors can talk to you. That's what P25 is about. That's what digital truck radio is about, and that's why it's important. Okay. So I'll kind of breeze through this slide. Why do customers buy Motorola? I've touched on the coverage and interoperability. The durability is shown through our radios. Most of the people in this room that have Apexes know that they're very durable. I want to touch on these last two, security and monitoring. So security on both the base stations and on your portables. So with your portables, every talk group can be made private. Nobody can listen into your conversations. Other people in all the talk groups can't listen to your conversations unless they have access to them. That's one side of the security. The other side is security monitoring provided with maintenance. So all of your security update patches are sent over the air through the maintenance packages and uploaded on a timely basis. So this prevents against hacking and things like that nature that are very prevalent in IT systems. And this kind of alludes to the monitoring. So the monitoring aspect is if anything goes wrong in your system, you'll get a call, a text, technician will be dispatched, everything without any intervention from you. So if somebody opens the door alarm, so if tower top amp goes out, if a base station goes out, you get a text, a call, an alert, and a technician will be dispatched automatically to fix that equipment. So as we kind of go through here, I'm going to go through a little bit of pricing slides. What you guys can read what's up here. The main difference between the two. So there's the Premier Service Package and the Advanced Plus. TACAN currently uses a Premier Package, which encompasses all that Advanced Plus has, but then some. So that includes a system manager, as well as an FSO tech. An FSO Tech is a badged Motorolan that is trained and certified through Motorola to work on all the equipment. The Advanced Plus will use one of our local shops to do the exact same work. They're trained and certified to do so, but with the Premier package, we'll have 1 or 2 FSO techs that will come and do all of your servicing needs. So the last point that I want to make on this slide is the SUA and maintenance. So SUA is a system upgrade agreement. What this does is keeps your system up to date with a system release every 2 years. This is something like going from Windows 7 to Windows 10. It's included, keeps you up to date, everything's done in a timely manner, and you never fall behind on updates.
So why do we have to have SUAs? Because it's a big computer. A P25 system is a big computer now. So routers, servers, mixed boxes, and think about the manufacturers and technology. It changes every so often. So that equipment and software becomes obsolete or end of life. So SUA, you're protecting your investment. So let's just say if you had a 10-year SUA plan, at the end of year 10, you would have had 4 upgrades or 5, and your system is almost brand new again. You won't have to replace it 10 to 15 years from now.
Right. To Joe's point, when the hardware goes obsolete, the hardware is replaced. So if your computer only runs Windows 7, and we're going to Windows 10, but it doesn't support it, it's going to be replaced.
Right.
If some version of a server is old and it's end of life, it's going to be replaced under the SUA. So that's been provided in both of these designs, the designs so that you never have to make this magnitude of purchase.
Yeah. And for you guys that are resource providers, right, money and making decisions, the reason we put these programs in place is early on, we sell a system, and 3 or 4 years later, hey, you got to upgrade this, and that. It's $800,000, whatever it is, right? So with this plan, it levelizes out your investment level over that period, and you don't have big pops in your budget, right? And it's just programmed. So at the end of that SUA upgrade period, like I said, it's almost like a brand new system.
So again, here's the ROM pricing. This is something you guys have seen before. Rough order of magnitude.
Okay.
Correct. Yes. So rough order of magnitude pricing. These are the same prices that you've seen in the comp packets that you have. Both of these prices exclude Soul System subscribers. Once we have a decision on which way we're going, then we can hone this, reduce the price, and go from there.
So what's the difference in the price, Alex, between 8 and
Sure. So the difference in the price, so the local options, we have with the simulcast system, there's something called a prime site. What this does is it receives all of the audio coming in and it votes on it. So it votes the best audio, it reconstructs everything, and then transmits it back out. That's how simulcast works. So what the difference is for the tagging option, there's a prime site, and then it's called a geo-redundant prime site. So they're 2 physically separate prime sites. In case one fails, one's in another location, that one takes over seamlessly, no effects to the users. So the difference in the $1.5 million here is effectively the geo-prime site. So the local option has an existing prime site, and the TACN option currently is an ASR, so they don't have a prime site or a geo-redundant site. And that really comes down to the difference between the 2 options.
I mean, it's identical technology otherwise, besides the simulcasters.
Yep.
Right, same equipment, which is missing pieces.
So that's the difference between the 2 prices.
Could you expand on the excluding the schools? When you say that, you're talking about like the principals and assistant principals, something like that wouldn't be.
So that price, bus drivers. Correct. Bus drivers, general school portables. I think the activity buses are included in that as well.
SRO?
No, not SROs. So SROs are included in those 2 prices.
You say R or
R.
So we've got the SR radios in the main option, the other radios are
special school district or whatever that was, Mr. Mayor.
Talking about the city school.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
No, we would only be looking at the county schools.
Gotcha. Correct.
Two separate systems.
So one thing that we've been working towards is something that's called a lease purchase option instead of issuing a bond. A lease purchase is not considered a debt. It's technically a contract instead of a debt. So you don't have to issue a bond. They're highly flexible. They can go from anywhere from 3 years to 15 years, structured payments, everything like that. So I'm going to show you next just a few options that entail what the lease purchase will allow you to do instead of a bond. So here's 3 options. It's a lot of numbers up there, but the main gist of it is that lease payment in the bottom, in addition to the 1 year in arrears. So what that means is from contract sign, your first payment's not due till after, 1 year after that contract sign. So this allows you to appropriate it in the budget.
Yeah, it's like, you don't pay your taxes, buy a house today, you don't pay your taxes till the end of the year. So.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So, and the lease payment at the bottom is just what's due every year. Now, these are highly flexible. You can pay semi-annually, quarterly, yearly. It's up to you how we'd like to structure it. But I just wanted to give you some examples of how this can be broken out over 5, 7, and 10 years.
So it's a tool really if you wanted to not have a big bubble on your capital budget for two years or however long it takes to build the system out. Just spread that out over a particular period.
I would look to my finance.
She's listening in office.
She's slimmed down.
Well,
But, you know, it's something, Mr. Chairman, to keep in mind from our bond rating. Goes a long way.
Now, the money that you got, I assume is an average between the two systems, or is that for either system? This
Yeah, either one you buy.
the cost would be the same for either system.
Well, they're slightly different because of the prime side that Alex was talking about, right?
Right.
So you would have to add that with the TACAN option and convert their sites to simulcast, right? All it means is if I had a radio and I push the button and I keyed up, it would go to all 10 sites, or how much is in the TACAN system, all 7 in that system. They all transmit at the same time and then talk. So we would have to add that piece of equipment.
But these are with you, this cost here is with you adding to our existing towers and you providing the equipment, maintaining them.
So what did you base the?
So what this is the upfront purchase. So this is the 16 million upfront. 16.5, apologies. So to your point, the maintenance is actually paid yearly afterwards as well. So this is for the CapEx, and then the maintenance, the capital investment. This is for the capital investment upfront.
So if we were going to say, here's your numbers, you'd have a lease number that you would buy the equipment for, and you have a maintenance number, an SUA number every year as well.
Well, the thing that jumps out at me is if we just bought it, 10 years from now, we're going to end up having to buy it all over again because everything's obsolete. So I can see, you've got a good sales point here.
Yeah, it just stays current. We keep it current. Right. I actually told that to somebody one time. It's like, well, it's great for Motorola.
And it's not nearly as much, but we do already pay a maintenance agreement. It's not an SUA for what we have now. It comes to only about $110,000 every 2 years. And that will, of course, go up. But we do pay some maintenance now.
SUA is not going to stay 110.
No,
it's not. No, but it's not even going to be close to that.
There's 2 components. There's the maintenance piece, like Alex was talking about. Either option, right? You got the break fix maintenance. Everything's monitored 7/24, 365 days a year. We usually know if you have a problem before y'all do. And then the second component is the system upgrade agreement, right? So there's two components in one number, and we can break that out if you want to look at it and evaluate it that way. Now, in the state option, okay, you pay the fee that SUA, I believe it's included as part of the process, right?
Yes.
So.
Yeah, we take care of all the maintenance and the upgrade.
Yes.
On any of the equipment that's brought to the state network.
Correct.
Attacking, right?
Yes.
Correct.
And what was that number? 200?
200 per user.
Per user?
Per year.
How many users should we estimate?
So currently we have 1,935 radios.
Yeah. And
including consoles.
It's including consoles, including consolettes for those consoles as well, correct.
And the state, as far as that's concerned, just they take the rough count of the subscribers. We don't charge extra for consoles or whatever. You might have, 25 or 30 consoles. We don't charge additional for that. It all covers by the subscriber fee. And that is just a portion of really what our maintenance would go up.
Right.
By Rutherford County coming to the state on the tacking, our overall maintenance would increase. And actually, I think rough numbers, about $150,000 more a year is how much we would be paying for Rutherford County to come on the system. But it gives everybody, as locals come on, it increases this network for everybody concerned.
Right. Now,
It's a benefit.
On the local government option, there's not a fee that's been discussed, or if you're working with Borough, have you guys made any?
That is one very important point. I spent, since our last meeting, I've spent an enormous amount of time meeting with people. I've met with Motorola on 2 different occasions. I met with the sheriff, EMS director, fire chief. I met with the Murfreesboro radio system administrator, Mr. Hooper, who's the TACAN system administrator, with Middle Tennessee Electric's communications engineer, and probably one of the more important things is I spent several hours with the Williamson County system administrator, and one of the things that he stressed first is governance, that agreement, who pays for what and who controls what. Until you get those down, you don't really know whether you're going to be paying a user fee. It's one thing for a couple of people at a lower level to agree not to have a user fee, but until the legislative bodies of those 2 organizations, that would be Murfreesboro City Council and the Rutherford County Commission, agree that Rutherford County will never be charged a user fee, then you don't know that there will be no user fee. If budget cycles go by the wayside or whatever, and revenue goes down, without a written agreement, Murfreesboro could come back and say, hey, we're going to charge 200, 300, whatever. And so I think that's an important part right there, is get the governance down before we go too much further. Because neither legislative body has agreed and signed an agreement that there will be no user fee. That's speculation. And I don't think we want to spend $17 million or whatever, either way, without governance.
We agree with that, whether it's the state or it's Murfreesboro. The state has a contract that you sign. But we do this every day across North America. So we actually have a number of MOUs that have been agreed to between a city and a county, or a county and a state, or whatever. So governance is very important. And typically, you have representatives that would meet from each side. Here's the agreement, right? and this is what we're gonna do, this is what you're gonna do. And then each, the county commission, city council would approve that. And then you have representatives that would probably serve on a small board or however you want to structure that to deal with day-to-day. But for us, it's common. I mean, we're involved with it almost every day.
Yeah, I know it's common, but till we do that, we don't have an agreement.
Yeah.
We kind of get the cart before the horse when we gonna say we're gonna invest $17 million in a system, and then we're gonna do the agreement. I mean, it just doesn't make sense to me. I've got some other things to say, but I'll let you get on.
Okay, well, I just one point if I could on that, right? So Memphis, City of Memphis and Shelby County, back in 2004, actually, the stars aligned and they were able to work together, right, and get a MOU put between them, right? So it saved them both some money, and now Shelby County Sheriff and the Memphis Police are all integrated, right? So that started back in 2004. So we certainly would be glad to work with you on anything you'd like to see. The other thing I'd like to say is, if you told us tomorrow, hey Motorola, we want this system, it's going to take 14 to 18 months to build it out, depending on the towers and civil work. And I mean, the first 6 months is going to be site analysis, structural analysis, federal government, environmental assessments, historical assessments. I mean, there's just so much paperwork, right? So first 6 months is just getting the federal stuff, the state stuff, and engineering, structural engineering done. So it takes a while to build these systems.
Was there a question? As a 456 today, their system administrator, Bill Terry, I just confirmed there is no fee based on the fact that we're paying an SUA2, would pay an SUA2 that matches theirs. So if we're paying half the system maintenance, they're paying half the system maintenance. It wouldn't be fair to say you're going to pay a user fee. We've had low-level discussions on a agreement type conversation, but until we make a decision what direction we're going in, we can't take it to the next level. But we have begun discussing what would be allowed, what would be allowed, who would be able to do what, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had that talk.
My point is, Bill Jerry, no more than Brian Robertson and our government has the authority to make that statement. It's simply not. I don't even know that the mayor could make a statement that there's going to be no user fee until he brings something to the county commission and the county commission agrees to it. So until the Murfreesboro City Council signs a document, does a resolution authorizing the mayor of Murfreesboro, and we do likewise authorizing the mayor of Rutherford County to enter into an agreement, then there is no agreement. We have no guarantee. So that's my point. And like I said, I have to do other things, but let's get on.
So just a little snippet here. P20, sir.
One question. The SUA thing is a separate fee.
Correct. So
how much are we talking about there? I mean, we're talking about 16.5, 17 million. How much, what is that entail?
So when you look at, I can't give you a specific number right now because SUA and maintenance are together.
Yeah.
Ballpark, it's about $450,000 a year in either direction. So if we look at them side by side, the cost of
plus the 200 per unit?
No. So
okay.
So a little clarification there. So the $200 a unit equates to almost $450,000.
It's $387,000.
Correct. And then it boosts. Well, so it's $387,000. Then we have on-site dispatch included as well, so it increases just slightly.
We've made this so complicated, we sometimes can't figure out.
Right.
I think that
the big picture is
the big picture, right? If you go, Rutherford County has about 2,000 subscribers. That's about $400,000 a year, right? The SUA is about $387,000 with maintenance or $400,000. So, as Alex pointed out, you look at the investments, depends on. They're pretty similar overall on the maintenance and SUA. The state's just gonna handle it all for you for a flat user fee of $200 a year.
That's all included.
It's all included.
There's not additional issue. Where the other cars get the extra fees.
Well, that state has, I don't know, Arnold, with $5-7 million a year on a maintenance SUA contract with us. somewhere.
Yeah, our current, it runs us in that range, around 7 million. That's us.
That
but to-
200 includes it.
But to a local government, we just do the flat rate, 200 across the board.
Plus the fact is there any other fees as far as just maintenance that we're talking about with the city?
Only thing
would
that,
not be included.
what we do not cover is like generators, UPSs at power sites, which is normal, HVAC. We do not provide a technician to come and work on your consoles, and we don't provide that even to our THP dispatch centers. We have internal staff that does that part of the break fix. But the Motorola provides the parts and support and all like that anybody needs is all included in our.
So Murfreesboro decided they were just gonna build their own system, right? That's what they did. So you really have two great options here on which way you want to go, right? So.
One huge question though, with the, if I'm not, Mr. Chairman, when you say 16.5 or 18, y'all have already done the testing throughout the county or whatever. So as far as towers are concerned, we're going to have 100% keyed up wherever we are. We're not going to need, that's part of our 16 million. We're not going to need no more towers. Get this up and running, and then 3 months down the road, 2 days down the road, 2 years down the road, whatever, we like, hey, we're not getting service over here. We need another tower. So that's another $1 million if I looked at this right.
Both of these systems are designed to 95% service area reliability at a 95% reliability. What does that mean, right? If you take your entire county service area, both of these systems cover 95% of the service area. Every time you key up your portable, you've got a 95% chance of that PTT going ahead and going to the towers. So most of the time it's higher than that 95.
So let's explain that. So if you imagine the county, Allen County, we're gonna lay a gridded map with probably half-mile grids. And we gotta hit 95% of those grids to say the system does exactly what we said and guarantee it. So you get the coverage.
That's getting there.
Okay. Either system. Yeah, either system. So
it was the next slide. So this is currently between the two systems. What you're looking at inside is the Rutherford County border. So many have asked, why are there 10 sites compared to 7 sites, right? This was our guaranteed final system coverage between the two sites. As you can see, inside the county boundary, it is almost identical between the two systems. The reason that there's 10 sites on the local government system is the centralized site constellation on the right. You can see that Murfreesboro's current 5 towers are centered in the city center, whereas, and this provides great in-building coverage, right? There's more towers, more density, things of that nature. But to get the same 95% portable on-street coverage, we only needed 7 towers with the TACAN system.
Yeah, so make sure we understand that. So these maps are based on using a handheld radio, right? Because law enforcement guys, I mean, use their mobile, right? But they get out of that car, right? You want to know, they got to be able to push that button and it's there. So both of them will give you that 95% portable coverage, and Motorola is going to guarantee that for you.
Are you talking about the handset and the mobile unit?
Yes, yes. So that these maps are based on a 3-watt portable.
Based on 3-watt portable, correct.
Right.
I thought that the amount we were looking at was with an additional tower. One additional tower. Is that the money that we're looking at, or is I'm mistaken on that?
Upgrades to some towers, but I don't.
No additional towers outside of what's on the screen right now. It's been looked at and can be provided as an option to put an additional tower, which I'll kind of speak to it as we come through here.
So those are all state sites on the left, right?
Correct. Well, so right here, Cane Ridge, Smyrna, Tiger Hill. Oh, I'm sorry, Cane Ridge, Smyrna, and Tiger Hill are current tagging sites. So we're adding 4 sites to that. On the right, Coleman, CUD, Fire Station 4, Blackman, and Marshall Knob, so the 5 in the middle of the county. Those are current local government system sites. Milton, Long Ridge, Lynch Hill, Eagleville, and Smyrna are actually current sites used on the analog simulcast system today. We would just be taking those and reappropriating them for the local government system. And the same thing for the tagging system as well. Is that a correct question?
Well, we've got 4 sites. You're talking Lynch Hill, Tiger, Smyrna, and Cane Ridge.
Yes.
In the town.
Will Laverne's additional, when they go to tacking very soon, will that add to the north end coverage when Laverne, the city of Laverne?
So Laverne's a dispatch only site. It's on
It's going to be on the Cane Ridge. Well, they're building their own tower out back. They're building a tower out back. But it's just internal.
That tower is just for microwave hops with their consoles.
Gotcha.
And Laverne just added channels to Cane Ridge.
Like added capacity.
Correct.
Correct. Just keep in mind, the technology on either side is exactly the same, right? I think the only subtlety about this is that Murfreesboro's got those centrally located sites, so you would benefit from those, right, in some degree from in-building coverage. And then they would benefit from you adding sites out in the county because that would help their overall coverage. So it's a win-win, and it's the same for state, right? Y'all would have a simulcast cell, and it's just a win-win.
But it's all, this is showing 95% reliability in a residential light building, right?
Correct.
And there's a lot of white there. A lot of white there. There's white there on both things. Like I said, I spent a lot of time with, who's a customer of yours, Bill Jorgensen, with the Williamson County system. They have 12 sites. They're 584 square miles. We're 624 square miles. They've got 12 sites inside Williamson County to cover Williamson County, plus they're tied into the Nashville system and part of the, they will be able to roam over. That's especially critical for them on that rough border along the Williamson-Davidson County line. So, what it's taking for there, personally, I don't want to, and I'm familiar with these maps. I mean, I've done hundreds of these, and to be quite honest, I can make it show anything I want to. You tell me what you want to see, I'll make it show, appear that way. But I know what you're doing. You're doing 95% in a light building, so you've added that factor in.
Yes, sir.
But either system, there's still white areas, and I think it's been sold to some of the departments and so on that they're going to have in-building coverage no matter what, and I think that's a misnomer. And I don't want to see, okay, we've got on-street coverage, but when we go in a house, we lose it. Because I don't want fire or EMS or SO coming back to the county commission a couple of years from now, and it will take 2 years to build this out, and saying, you spent $17 million, but we still can't talk here, here, and here.
Right.
I would rather us take a comprehensive look at this. I'd rather spend $20 million and get it right in the beginning. I really would. I'd rather spend $20 million and get it right in the beginning than to spend $17 million and it seems we're trying to balance out cost. And I'm looking at coverage and what the service it's going to give our first responders. And, I've been on both ends. I've been both on the design end of designing systems, and I've been on the user end too. And I know both ends. And it's,
Just a comment on the white space.
Yeah.
If it's 94.5%
I know.
It's not gonna show.
You don't have to.
Yeah, I know you know that. I just said that for the rest of the group. Because, you may be down there at 92% in the white space and it's gonna work fine, but we're gonna cover 95% of those grids. The second thing in Williamson County, you had 3 existing Franklin sites, then we added the Brentwood sites, and then the county overlaid their sites. And they had some, I think, 14 dB light building coverage, and they wanted medium building coverage. And then there were certain areas like hospitals and schools where it's like, hey, we want it to work in a school.
Yeah.
Okay, you're going to have to spend some money on BDAs.
And
now what we said to them is, why don't you build your system and let's test it, and you hold that money back for BDAs.
yeah, I worked for Mr. Jorgensen for a couple of years after I retired from Sprint as engineer.
Sure.
And so Bill and I know each other well, and we can have very frank conversations. And he told me, he said, we've got a list of 90 facilities that we want to test.
Yeah.
And because we're not sure we'll have coverage in it. That's with 12 sites. And so we want to test these. And
so Alex, I mean, we can run light duty buildings, medium duty buildings, and heavy duty buildings. And we can predict fairly accurately what's going to work in the building. Now, if you're in the middle of a hospital down a basement under a lot of concrete, it's probably not going to talk about
story, right?
Yeah. Or some high schools, or you're putting big high schools, you might want to put BDAs in that as part of the construction process. You may want to pass a building.
That's something we need to look at.
Right.
That's part of fire code now anyway.
Right.
I talked to Mr. Jorgensen last week, and so explained to me, he did mention something that we hadn't looked at, is that they had joined a Middle Tennessee Radio Authority. MRAM. What is that?
It's a Williamson County Radio Authority. The Williamson County, Franklin, and Brentwood came together and created a special authority to run the radio system.
The government.
Right.
That's the government.
That's their model of government.
WCJCNA.
Because he mentioned that they had a tower in Nolensville that we could ping off of if we were to. It's just another option for us to look at. So I'm asking.
Yeah, that tower, that particular site we looked at in the current analog system. At the time, the tower was not designed to hold any microwave dishes, so they totally rebuilt the new tower there. So they do that tower. It was originally part of their analog system, and it had to be discarded because we couldn't put a microwave dish on the tower. When I gave them the structural analysis, they turned around and started planning for a new tower.
Yeah, just for everybody's benefit, I know you know early, but what the benefit was for Williamson County to join Metro Nashville. Now, I think that Metro Nashville started out with 9 sites for the Davidson County and the city, right? So Williamson came along with Brentwood and Franklin. Hey, if we connect our systems together, we can back you up and you can back us up. So if they lost any part of their system, they got automatic switch over. Public safety never loses Mississippi, right? And then they created their own governance structure in Williamson County. Metro Nashville has MRAM, and then they have representatives from each meeting. And that way they can set policy on talk groups and investment and
projects, additions, things like that.
So if you looked at that model, you say, hey, we need to do something like that with Murfreesboro, if that's the option you take.
Yeah, I think we went with Murfreesboro because Smyrna and Laverne are both going on a TACAN system. So we would need to convince them to join in with us and then become part of a 3-county regional system. That's my whole point is, I'm not sure we're ready to leap and say that we need to spend this on this right now. Like I said, I've done this for 15 years. I've talked with a lot of people over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't know, I haven't seen any where we've done structural. There's a lot of, I don't see any mention of synergy with Middle Tennessee Electric, where we sharing power sites and possible sharing of microwave. There's just a lot of things that I don't know that we're ready to
Well,
So I'll leave it at that.
No, I mean, all great points. No, absolutely great points. But here's the thing. Remember P25 puts the nozzle in, it says, every radio you buy, whether it's on the state system or going with Murfreesboro, you can have talk groups, right? If you have an MOU with the state, right, with Lincoln County, with I mean, it's just all part of the MOU. So the sheriff's department can talk to everybody, Laverne or the other two systems that are on Tackett. Hey, as long as the state and y'all work out the MOU there, they can just, there's a talk group.
And then they're paying for it twice.
Maybe 200 on the radio on top of it.
Radio plus.
Alex, for any critical, for any critical facilities
I understand that.
identified to be covered on either one of these coverage maps?
Critical facilities?
Schools, hospitals, justice buildings?
I did not have a list identified on these maps of this, no. I'll kind of talk a little bit about the school radios later. But no, I can provide that. It's really easy to plot those and provide. See what kind of coverage that we're predicting to see with that.
So, Mr. Gurley, Commissioner, I know you're suggesting that we take a step back and do our due diligence and, you know.
I had a slide thing. Mr. Jorgensen put all of his books in on a chair. And if you stack them on top of each other, their due diligence is about this thick. They went through, they started in 2012. Actually, they started before that, but they started in earnest in 2012. From 13 through 16, worked with y'all. Basically, pulled the plug on y'all, go in 16. Almost got the 12th site on there, and 19. So it's this process, and
how long do you think it would take us to do our due diligence?
I don't know. I think it depends on whether we can get someone who really knows what they're doing as far as doing the due diligence and everything or not. They, as Mr. Jorgensen and Mr. Allman with Brentwood are both heavy IT guys. They have a lot of knowledge. Most anyone who's had anything to do with radio knows Mr. Jorgensen is known as Mr. Interoperability, and yet they didn't rely on themselves. Still didn't rely on themselves as much knowledge as they have. And, you know,
They had a consultant, but I'm going to be honest with you. They extended that project an extra 2 years and billed them somewhere along the way. They actually ran out of money in their consulting budget. So I just want to make sure you guys.
I don't want to drag into a 2-year project. I don't want to do that. I think we should do it. Number one, I fully agree we should go to P25 digital system in Rutherford County. We should fund it to where it will cover what, in a reasonable scenario, I think that'd be a light building, provide the coverage for our first responders. Now, exactly how much that's going to cost, I don't know that we know, and exactly which way we need to go to do that, I don't know still. But I know Motorola will be here. Motorola was around 40-something years ago when I bought the first system in the state of Tennessee. It's here now, and it'll be here tomorrow. Right. It's not a matter of whether we're going to buy some obsolete brand or obsolete technology. We want to buy the best. We want to buy the best technology there is available to put in the hands of our first responders. But I do think I'm ready to, to move forward with a motion to. We need to get the governance in place. We need to know 100% that we're not going to ever be charged a user fee until the entities. That could be done pretty quickly. Until the two entities get together and actually execute a document. We don't know that.
But don't we need to know which one of those two up there are going with?
Well, we could execute a document.
Well, if we're going with Tackett, if
the governance is there.
We need a.
But we could still execute a document with Murfreesboro and still have it ready to trigger. There's no reason we can't execute a document.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That we have it ready to trigger. So we need to get that governance in place.
Actually, it's in
There's
And
already one
know for
place.
sure.
Yes.
We need to make.
There's already one place with TACA.
Rutherford County already has a revenue contract in place with TACA.
So just a comment on the coverage, right? Normally, if we were starting this process, coverage drives cost, right? So in this case, you got coverage. But as you start ratcheting up, this is where Live Williamson County had hit up to 12 sites. We want this level of medium building coverage, and we want these 96, whatever sites. You have to guarantee that you're gonna cover those. Well, our engineers are gonna look at that and go, hey, I gotta design this so that number of sites in either one of those starts to go up. And every time you add a site, it's $1 million. And maintenance, and tower maintenance. I'm not saying, we'd love to sell you as many sites as you
But
want.
I would rather have it that provides the coverage to our first responders. Like I said, I'd rather spend $20 million and have the coverage that our first responders need than to spend $17 million and not have it. And because I think if we commit to spending $17 million tonight on either one of these directions, and then we find out we can't do it. I don't know. I've said my piece. I'll let my fellow commissioners join in and ask more questions. And
I just say we can't afford to do it wrong. We need to get it right, just like you say, Commissioner. Let's make sure that we have all of our questions answered. We do it right. Number one, we need to make sure that our citizens are provided for. That's the number one goal.
if our first responders can't talk, they can't service their citizens.
Right. So just back on the side thing. So we said 95%.
Right.
But you said, no, we want 97%.
Right.
Okay, you're gonna pay a lot of money for that extra 2%, right? Because we have to guarantee it. So I agree, there's a trade-off between coverage, in-building coverage, and investment level, right? And so I think what we tried to do, at least on this first task, with both these options, is say, this is the investment level that Rutherford County is looking at on both those solutions, right? And we're willing to run as many maps as you guys need, put together as many scenarios as you need. Now, if you want to spend $500,000 on a consultant, we'll work with them too.
I don't want to do that.
I don't,
Sure. Let me just say, we've heard this direction. I think we've had a group also talk the other way too. Do we have any other?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, you may.
I'm John Johnson. Y'all should have got an email from me about 2 weeks ago. Either way you go, if you build it out to 95%, 97%, I think Williamson County's 97.
Correct. And there's some 10 building requirements.
Right. They'll give you what you want. The thing we're missing here is that if you go with Murfreesboro, who's going to manage the system? I've known Bill Terry for a long time. Bill's already told me when he's retiring. So, but it takes more than one person to manage a large system like that. With TACA, you actually have a management team in place. Murfreesboro, they would have to, in their government, say, this is what we're going to provide as a management team to make sure that the system runs.
We got a great team for I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So, I mean, I think whichever way you decide to go, know what you want. We want 95, 97, no such thing as 100.
Can't afford it.
You can't afford it.
There.
And the next time you build a big building, it's going to change your coverage. So decide what you want. We know we don't want mobile coverage. We want handheld coverage in buildings at what percentage level, and who's going to manage the system locally.
I'll speak probably for the last time unless y'all have further questions. But as far as state TACA through the Department of Safety, we're here to assist Rutherford County in any way we can. We're not trying to sway you one way or the other. We'd love for you to come to TACA because the mayor was part of funding the original system, and we believe in it. We've seen it work for other communities across the state. But it comes down to Rutherford County. It's your decision. How are you going to provide for your people? And yeah, I think it's a great decision whichever way you go. You've gone with P25. That beats a lot of counties today that are going with non-standard radio systems. And Motorola doesn't like me to say this, but because it is P25, it's supported by various equipment manufacturers. You don't only have to buy certain radios to be on TACAN on a P25 system. You can buy multiple vendors' radios. And as part of P25, I serve on a committee for Homeland Security, Department of Homeland Security, and Office of Emergency Communications in Washington, that we oversee the P25 standard to make sure that the vendors provide radios that will operate. So, you know, we're trying not to get into it, but we want you, but we'll support you in any way we can.
And it's not just a public safety standard. This is an EIA/TIA, Telecommunication Industry Association. This is a nationwide big standard.
Yeah, and just to your point about the management piece, so like in Metro Nashville, you have a system manager, right, Paul Whitten, that works with Alex, and they manage everything for Metro. Williamson County doesn't have it. They do it themselves, but they collaborate, right? So I would say to that point, you know, Motorola can provide a system manager if that's something that the city and county would want. There's a million options on how to do that, right? But the first thing you got to do is decide which one of those are you going to go with, because that drives everything else.
You know, what I was going to say, I think at our last meeting, and I think, Peter, you may want to correct me on this. I think I've heard you 3 or 4 times that evening say, what I want to know is which way you want to go.
Yes, sir.
I think that's what you were saying that night. And nobody would, it's sort of like getting in the taxi cab and we went telling him which way to drive. And now we've heard it again. And I think now we've heard these gentlemen say which way you want to go. And we've got it again. I tell you where I want to go. I want to go where everybody hears. I'm just tired of being out here where you stand beside the deputy and he hears nothing. He's sitting there clicking and nothing's there. Nobody's home. And I want a fireman to be able, when they go inside of a house, if they can, to be able to talk back and forth. That's our goal and what we want to do. Tacking and local, I've heard it both ways, back and forth to the point where, is there another option somewhere, you know, where I can divide it? But I keep, no, there's not. And we have got to decide and where we want to do this. And I think once we decide, then we can make, as Joe says here, these other decisions. And I think what Peter's been working on too. The thing is, we got to get together and start doing this. You're talking about 2 years, we could be years and years and years doing all this stuff. So we got to make some kind of decision. I want to hear from some of you. And I mean, we've got fire here this evening. We've got people from emergency management and sort. I want to hear what some of you have to say too.
Sure. Mr. Chairman, can I have one quick point and I'll shut up, okay? If you went with Murfreesboro, now let's say the relationship's sour or they wanted more money or whatever, you call Arnold, hey, we want to move our sites over here. Or if you went to Arnold or the state and said, hey, we're going to join you, but then 2 administrations down the road, hey, we're going to charge $500 a year per radio. We'll go to Murfreesboro, because the technology is just, it can go either way. Now, I just want to make sure you guys understand, whichever way you go, you know, if you go with Motorola, and there are other manufacturers, but I think it was Laverne and went off of Metro Nashville onto the state. So you have lots of options. Whichever way you pick, you can't really go wrong, is my point.
Mr. Chairman, they had mentioned in our office that we could go local and then say the sheriff's department wanted 4 cars, 10 cars, whatever it is, to go tacking, you could do that. But what about the flip-flop of that? What if we went tacking and we wanted ambulance or fire or something to go local?
Yeah, it's still,
I mean, I don't,
it's all P25.
to me, I don't really understand the mixing and matching there, but they said it could be done, so I don't know if that's possible or
Well, I think
feasible.
what I heard was the sheriff wanted the statewide for prisoner
They
transport.
use the pick up somebody in Memphis. And
Right.
But you all had said that they could.
To get the
they
both
could
of-
put maybe
both
4
worlds, you know.
vehicles that were designed to go pick up and transport prisoners or
If the
something.
state will give you the statewide talk groups, which I think you would, right? We'd work out a deal.
Well, we've got an agreement already, and we just work on
How long we have that?
you have a,
At additional cost.
We have a cost agreement, since we have
Right.
subscribers that involves revenue, you have to sign that initial agreement that says you're pretty much gonna pay the state every year when they send you a bill. And if you join the systems, when you walk in at day 1, what equipment you bring, if you decide day 2 you wanna leave, you take it with you, it's all right.
But I mean, you could have talk groups on both Murfreesboro, Tackett.
There's still a cost to it, though.
Yeah.
As long as you have multi-key. I kind of, listened to what they said, you know, asked the question, oh, well, that's 435,000 more. Well, I kind of feels like buying a car and, oh, did you want tires with it? Well, you know, it's, or did you want a warranty? So that's what I don't see, and what was in some of these proposals is these, these 435,000 is a lot of money.
Sure.
What I could do with the budget. So,
Short truck.
short truck.
$7 million is a lot of
So,
money.
you know, how many more than 435,000, which would be, and that's the part I don't have, and of course, I'm not the one to make decisions, it's the commission.
You don't have a detailed proposal from us yet because we didn't
Well, I
want to do
understand
2. If we need to do 2.
But I think we're
Well, we
locked
could
in on
do
16.5, 17 million, and that's not all the cost. There's a lot of other costs that come into this. That's not there, and I'm just speaking for me.
I mean, we've identified those costs though, right now.
Yeah, so you have a version of them in these comp packets that's been devised, but yes.
You got about another $500,000 in continuing cost each year for your maintenance and licensing and all that stuff.
Whether it's the tech and user fees or the SUA maintenance, yes.
Yes, plus you have tower sites, you got tower leases, you're on the sides, I mean, you know.
You ain't got
We have coverage together for all of it.
You don't have coverage out west on 96. You got a lot of population areas that are yet to be covered on either map.
Anyone else?
I'll make one last comment if I can. I've been doing public safety 40 years. I've been the radio frequency coordinator. I've known Joe. Actually, he was my mentor. So I can do these coverage studies all day long, and I play with it for about 2 or 3 days, just seeing, and neither one of those have enough green up there for me. Is Fosterville going to grow? You bet. Is Reederville going to grow? You bet. Both of those areas are not covered very well on either map. Out to 96 West, where I live, we got a lot of light up there around Bill Rice Ranch. So I think we need to decide how much coverage do we really want. 95, that was pretty. Let's get a cost how much you go to 97. Let's give them the critical infrastructure. Say, okay, these facilities have to have coverage, either through a VDA or through the sites. And then look at it. You can compare both systems that way.
In saying that, we've talked to the planning committees. This is where they've identified where residential growth is going to be along 840. And this is what Joe and I have actually talked about as places to add at the site if we choose to go down that route.
So you all took coverage out at Bill Rice Ranch?
Bill Rice Ranch used to have a observation tower out there very close to where the water tank is. So, you know, they go back to working out an agreement with Bill Rice, can we build a 180-foot tower up there or whatever?
That site, I've done the coverage analysis on that some years back, and it provides a tremendous amount of coverage. It's a great site. In fact, we even approached them about using that for, in the current system, I will have money.
We can flatline any cover scenario maps, design, sites, whatever.
Most out there, you know, Mayor Burgess's property, we've got 1,900 homes coming in.
That's all flat up there.
That's in the city.
But population shouldn't matter because the deputies over here at Burke's Holler, Fair Holler, in one house on a dead-end street is it more important to have it over here where there's 1,900 houses or where this deputy's in trouble with one house on the street? And what I'm seeing is mostly our district.
And if you're in there on a SCBA in a fire in
And I'm down in that house.
your people in it,
You know,
you
I
won't talk.
care less about them 1,900 houses. Because this one house on this dead-end street with me in it is more important than that. So population shouldn't matter.
By the way, we gave them a potential site for right there around Peaks Hill. So, because I built a tower up there, the cell tower that's there. You know, the problem you get into, we spent $500,000 on building that road and about $300,000 on building the site. And back in 2001 or 2. And so, but actually that's another circle I believe we gave you. It's right over in that area, the different circle area. So basically.
Can y'all give a price? Does that include building a road up the hill to get there and electricity and all that?
Not a water tower.
Oh yeah, you get to pay for that gravel.
I mean, that's what, Williamson County has one site they haven't built, because they're gonna take $1 million to build the road. They moved the site.
Speed Road is now going to a different knob because of that.
Commissioner B, I think had something to say.
Yeah, I've got a list of questions. And first of all, you know, the decisions that we got to make, one thing, just to answer a question, this MOU that we've been talking about, we can make any way we go contingent upon getting an agreement that's satisfactory to us. So that's not a problem for me looking at that. My main question is, and I wanted to ask, is it Arnold? Is that correct? I want to ask you a few questions.
Sure.
I feel a little closer to you than I do a salesman. I'm sorry. I'm not.
You're both my customers.
I understand.
All the ones that Joe talked about.
My question is mainly about the system, the P25. Is there another vendor besides Motorola that offers that?
Yeah.
Okay, or in your assessment, having worked with the state, I personally have used Motorola and own Motorola radios, and they're good. You know, they're probably the best that I've used, period, and they last longer. I'll say that on the front end, so you don't have to convince me they're good radios. But the system itself, you know, if we're going to go with the P25, in your opinion, what should we be looking at? Can we go to another vendor?
You could go to another vendor. I have never went to another vendor, and I worked formally before I went to the state. I was with the city of Chattanooga for 27 years. Deployed a system that we eventually built out to 10 counties in Tennessee and 3 over into Georgia, and it was a Motorola system. We had another vendor that was trying to get us, but we never saw the, I hate to talk about them in here, but we never saw the level of commitment on the engineering and implementation side to justify us to go with a different vendor. But you know, you would, whatever vendor you selected, you would have to manage those expectations with that vendor.
If you go with someone else on the infrastructure, it's going to be hard to mesh the Motorola infrastructure with the other, so you'd have to pretty well do a greenfield build.
Yeah, you would.
Now, on the subscriber unit, that's easy.
Yeah.
Well, I've been looking at prices for radios and, you know, what it costs us per radio. And I know that there are other radios out there that we could actually work on this system, but they wouldn't say log our location if we're out on the trail running. trying to catch somebody, things like that. I mean, I realize there's differences, and there's a reason that your radio may be $7,000 and their radio is $3,000.
There's a $7,000 radio?
That's good.
It's
Before you trade in your boat.
But I hear the $9 are going down.
And as a committee here, are we going to recommend that we go to P25? And if so, we only got two options. We can decide, first of all, are we going to go with the P25? If we are, then we're going to have to say whether we flip a coin or however we end up deciding which one of these two, so we can actually get some hard numbers. Now, Joe hadn't got a bad idea about getting some agreement with the state and getting an agreement with the city. I think that's probably doable if we wanted to. But
We already
already got it, so we can get the agreements with Murfreesboro, make it contingent upon whatever we decide to do. But Peter and I spent some time together, and I'm a volunteer firefighter. And I know where those white spots are without seeing them on the map, because I've been there and pushed that button, and I didn't hear anything but silence. And I've had trucks go past me, and I know the area that our chairman's from has got a lot of the same white spaces that I've got. And I told Peter straight up, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I've spent a lot of money on towers, and I've been told every time that you're going to have coverage. Don't worry about that. We'll have coverage. Well, I still got the same dead spots. And I will say this, now this was with the handheld in the readable area that I went around. I had better coverage than I've ever had before. And that's why I was asking if there was another tower, because you get on out in Burns Holland, we're on the hilly end of the county down here where I live, and you're not going to get the coverage back and forth. Now, the one thing I did see, the TACN versus the local, I got better coverage where I'm at with the local. Right. And I didn't do anything inside the building myself, but I did do it inside the vehicle. That's not the same, but that's with a handheld, not a mobile unit. So, I liked what I saw as far as the local system went. On the TACN, when I got it, it was clear. I mean, both of them pretty well acted the same. There was, very few places, but the same old places that I've always not had coverage. So, I could live with either one of them, but I'm more concerned about being inside the building, getting the coverage. And one of the questions I don't think came back is retrofitting some of our schools. I hadn't heard anything on what it would cost to run that wiring for one building. Either one of y'all got any kind of estimates? That's something I'd like to hear. Going forward in new schools built by legislation, we're going to have to put the wiring in there.
We're going to pay for it one way or the other. Our budget.
Commissioner, just for an example, Commissioner, the city of Murfreesboro with their new facility, their new police department, they didn't build that in on the front end and had to go back and do that right before they opened it to build in a BDA and a DAS, and it was $300,000.
So,
Last one I priced was
$350.
Williamson County, we would
That was 6
coverage for the county schools.
That was Signal Mountain
It's gonna
High
cost $3 million.
That on the front end or
Half those would be.
Yes.
So one quote for the new Rockville High School was $70,000 at present construction.
How much?
$70,000 present construction stage.
That's good.
It's a lot cheaper on the front end.
So we have had that discussion with the school board, had that discussion with Florida. We've already worked on a draft
Is it
proposal for
cost-
BDAs.
Is it the cost of the new modules that you're using inside these buildings? Because
wiring it whenever
I
that's
work
wired.
on plants where we've got repeaters inside the building, so these handhelds would work, and the cost was nothing even.
Well,
So what is the difference on this?
It's the installation, so after it's done, to rip out all the walls, to bore through concrete, things of that nature, to run those lines and those amplifiers, that's the majority of the cost. When you catch it on the front end, there are no walls. All the walls are open. You run the plenum coax through the building, and then once the building's built, it's already in place.
It's like going back.
If you go through a firewall, you have to have special materials to replace
Built an
that.
in-building system at Vanderbilt Hospital $2.something million to the old original hospital. We included that in children's, up front. When it was built, the desk system was part of the buildings that wasn't anywhere near, because we had to go back and drill through every floor multiple times and all that. You're right. I mean, it's a lot easier, a lot cheaper to do it on the front end, and easier.
Correct. Talking to the state fire marshal's office, it's part of the code, and they're starting to look at that. Rockville, all new schools will have these in them because it's part of the fire code that they be in them. And state fire marshal reviews all the schools.
Well, the other thing I want to say, man, and the thing that attracts me to the system is that sales point where at the end of this 10-year lease, we've basically got a new system out there, because I'm telling you, every 10 years, we've had to rebuild what we've got, our communication systems at EMS and out at the sheriff's department. I've gone through 2 of those, no, maybe 3 now. And, to see something here. So, tell you what I want to do. I want to go ahead and make a motion that we go to this P25 system. I want to vote on that if somebody wants to second it, and then we'll look at
second down here.
Then we'll look at which is which. So we got that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, go to the P25, second by Commissioner Gammon. And I'm going to take a roll call vote on that.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Well, that was easy.
How did that?
Well, let's go one step further. If somebody else wants to say something or jump in, you're welcome to. But from what I saw, the coverage, I prefer the local system because of that coverage. And from what I'm hearing from Peter, you can stand up and refute this or whatever, is we're getting better coverage in our buildings with the existing towers with the local system. So I'm gonna make a motion that we go to the local system contingent upon a MOU agreement with Murfreesboro City's government and our government with the mayor negotiating that. So that's my motion.
Second by Commissioner Irwin.
And one thing else I want to say about this is killing me. I helped build schools. When I started, we were building schools for $15 million, elementary schools. Some of them less than that. So, I mean, I'm astounded at this. I mean, I've got a sticker shock, but I know it's not going to get any cheaper. And I don't want to spend money like this, but I also know that we're growing and if we're expanding, we've got to do something. And I don't want to spend $5 million or $10 million and 10 years from now I have to turn around and do it again. And that's what we're going to end up doing if we don't do something like this.
I'd like to make an amendment to that motion, and it is along these lines, and that is we get optional pricing for additional sites to the northwest, to the east, to the west, and to the south, that we get optional pricing for additional sites included in this, and that way then we can come back and determine whether we can afford or not those additional sites.
We have a motion, do we have a second to that amendment? Commissioner Sereno, second. We'll vote on the amendment. Take Phillips, vote on the amendment.
Roll call.
Roll call.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. Now we'll vote on the motion as amended. We'll have a roll call vote on that too.
Commissioner Urban?
Yes.
Commissioner Gammon?
Yes.
Commissioner Gurley?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips? Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes. So we have voted on the local, looking at these additional sites. So I guess we go from here to come up with a package, price package.
You guys have lights for them?
Yes. All right. What further?
Did have a few more slides.
Quit while you're I'd say we're adjourned.
Appreciate the presentation.
Thank you, everyone.